Welcome to Fanfiction Audiobooks. If you enjoy the content, like and subscribing would be greatly appreciated. If you have any recommendation for novels, comment below. American Comics, Super Omega Mutant. Chapter 21, Metallization. There are no hot weapons or cold weapons. Compared to them, the three Murakami men were fully armed. After seeing that they were not carrying any weapons, Roy knew that they were most likely superhumans with extraordinary abilities. Otherwise, why wouldn't they come to him unarmed? As Roy looked at them, the three Hydra superhumans were also looking at him. "You don't need to take action, he is our target." After looking at Roy for a few seconds, Anderson, who was in his early 30s, spoke to Murakami and the other two. Without waiting for the three Murakami to answer, he turned to Braden and Lawrence and said, "Together. It is good." Braden and Lawrence replied at the same time. After hearing their answers, Anderson walked towards Roy without any hesitation. At the beginning, his pace was as leisurely as a walk. After taking a few leisurely steps, his speed suddenly increased, bursting out with a speed far beyond that of an ordinary person, and he arrived in front of Roy in the blink of an eye. At the same time, the right fist attacked Roy's chest like a cannonball. Anderson's instantaneous burst of speed was indeed very fast. But Roy reacted faster. As he swung his right fist, Roy raised his right hand, and the adamantium bone claw attacked his right arm. Anderson saw Roy's counterattack, but he didn't retract his right hand. Not only that, he also displayed his superpowers with confidence. Metallization. In just a moment, Anderson's right arm changed from a normal flesh and blood arm to a metal arm. Although he didn't know what Roy's adamantium bone claws were, he was very confident in his superpowers. More than 10 years ago, before he was recruited by Hydra, he was an ordinary gangster. In a gang fight, he was nearly beaten to death and awakened his metal superpower. The suddenly awakened superpowers not only allowed him to survive, but also enabled him to transform from an ordinary gangster into a gang boss. Just when he was preparing to expand and become stronger and lead his gang to New York to create greater glory, he was targeted by Hydra. What happens next is simple. He was captured by Hydra and worked as a laboratory guinea pig in Hydra's secret base for a period of time, undergoing various inhumane human experiments. Perhaps it was because his desire to survive was too strong, or perhaps Hydra had no intention of killing him from the beginning. After conducting various human experiments on him, Hydra brainwashed him. He then became a member of Hydra's superhuman forces. Laugh. The adamantium bone claw flashed across Anderson's metal arm. Bang! The severed metal arm fell to the ground under the force of gravity. How can this be? Anderson ignored the severe pain in his arm and looked at the broken arm in disbelief. Not long after awakening his superpowers, he tested his defense. The test results showed that after the body was metallized, he would not be injured even if shot at close range by a rifle. Not to mention pistols and metal knives. After being captured by Hydra, Hydra also conducted various tests on him, including but not limited to attack power, defense power, agility, etc. After testing, Hydra found that even large-caliber sniper rifles could not cause significant damage to him. Among Hydra's superhuman forces, Anderson is not the strongest. But if we only look at defense, his defense can rank in the top 3. But now, his metal arm was like paper and was easily chopped off by Roy. Not only Anderson showed an expression of disbelief, but Braden and Lawrence behind him also showed expressions of shock. They had never thought that Roy's adamantium claws could be so sharp. Unlike them, who were all shocked, Roy didn't think there was anything strange about this. In other words, he would have been surprised if the adamantium claw hadn't chopped off Anderson's metal right arm. After cutting off Anderson's right arm, he stabbed out with his left hand like lightning without any hesitation. Laugh. Anderson didn't have time to do anything before the adamantium claw in Roy's left hand pierced his heart, ending his life. After piercing Anderson's heart, Roy raised his right foot and kicked Anderson's body away. Then, it shot towards Braden and Lawrence. Without any hesitation, Braden and Lawrence immediately used their respective superpowers. Braden raised his hands and released silver-white lightning. As for Lawrence, he threw a fireball the size of a basketball. Although the Wolverine card gave him self-healing and regeneration abilities far beyond those of ordinary people, Roy had no intention of using his body to withstand lightning and fireballs. He ran towards Braden and the other man, exerted a little force with his legs, and jumped high, avoiding the oncoming lightning and fireballs. At the same time, he turned around nimbly like a professional gymnast, adjusted his posture in the air, and came above Braden's head like a hunting eagle. Laugh! Roy, who fell from the sky, first stabbed Braden's head with his adamantium claws, and then used Braden as a leverage point to pounce on Lawrence on the side. Laugh! The adamantium claws slashed across Lawrence's neck and chopped off his head. The whole process went smoothly, as if it had been rehearsed hundreds of times in advance. Roy ignored the dead Braden and Lawrence, and his eyes fell on Murakami and the other two. Now, it's your turn. After saying that, Roy launched an attack without waiting for the three Murakami to answer. After seeing him attacking the three of them, Murakami and Alexandra immediately drew their samurai swords, and Mrs. Gao also drew the long sword hidden in her cane. Compared to the ordinary ninjas of the hand, the three of them are indeed much stronger. But for Roy, they were still not a problem. After witnessing Roy killing Anderson and the other two, Murakami and the other two did not dare to be careless. They immediately used the formation they learned from Kunlun and formed a triangular formation. Even so, the triangle formation they formed still failed to change their outcome. Whether it was Murakami and Alexandra's samurai swords, or Mrs. Gao's long sword, none of them could withstand the adamantium bone claws and were easily cut off by Roy. As for the chi they possessed, it did not give them any chance of winning. With the increase of chi, their physical attributes have been significantly enhanced, and they possess strength, speed, stamina, and reaction speed far beyond that of ordinary people. But compared to Roy, who was loaded with 3 cards, their physical attributes were still not that strong. They only held out for a minute or two before they were seriously injured by Roy and fell to the ground with unwilling looks on their faces. "Hand over the dragon bones, and I can make your death easier," Roy said to Murakami and the other two. After hearing his words, Murakami, whose right hand and left leg were cut off, glared at him and said quickly, "Kill him if you want to, stop talking nonsense." After taking a look at Murakami, Roy came to Murakami and squatted down, using the King of Cards charging superpower to touch Murakami's left palm. After injecting some energy into Murakami's left palm, he detonated the energy in Murakami's palm without any hesitation. Bang! Murakami's palm was instantly blown into a bloody mess. "I won't kill you right away. I will blow your body apart bit by bit. First the left hand, then the right leg, chest, ears, eyes. Don't worry, I will control the energy of the explosion and let you live as long as possible." After saying that, Roy grabbed Murakami's forearm and injected energy into it. Bang! Murakami's forearm suddenly exploded, and flesh and blood splattered everywhere. "The dragon bone is in the safe in the study of the suburban villa." Murakami spoke quickly after realizing that Roy was not kidding him. End of this chapter. Chapter 22 Choice. Chapter 22 Choice. It's past 3 in the morning. The Queen. The original body's home. Roy lay in the bathtub, relaxing his body and mind while taking a bath. After Murakami finished his explanation, Mrs. Gao and Alexandra did not resist and told the hiding place of the dragon bones. In addition to the dragon bones, he also asked Murakami and the other two some other questions. For example, their 3 overseas bank accounts and passwords, how to use dragon bones, etc. Roy couldn't tell for a while whether they had lied about the hiding place of the dragon bones. But whether the overseas bank account and password they provide are correct, you can find out by logging in with your mobile phone. It turned out that Murakami and the other two did not lie about the hiding location of the dragon bones or the overseas bank account and password. However, the amount of their bank balances and dragon bones was much less than he expected. The three of them only have more than $200 million in savings, which means that on average each person has less than 100 million. As for the keel, it is even less, only about 10 kilograms. After taking a hot bath and washing his body, Roy left the bathroom wrapped in a bath towel and went to the bedroom to lie down. 7 in the morning. The alarm clock rings on time. Roy, who had slept for only 3 hours, opened his eyes, got up and put on his clothes. Although he had only slept for more than 3 hours, he was still full of energy and there was no sign of fatigue on his face. After washing up, he came to the kitchen in casual clothes and took out a small piece of dragon bone that was shining with faint white light and weighed about 100 grams from the system space. After taking out the dragon bone, Roy first recalled in his mind the usage instructions that Murakami and the other two had mentioned. Although dragon bones are very special, their normal usage is very simple unless they are used to resurrect the dead. It can be used for making wine, boiling soup, cooking porridge, or grinding it into powder and drinking it with water. After thinking for a while, Roy decided to grind the small piece of dragon bone into powder and mix it with milk to drink. After busying himself in the kitchen for a while, he successfully turned the dragon bones in his hand into dragon bone powder and poured it into the heated milk. After stirring it briefly, he picked up the cup and drank the milk at the right temperature. Not ground finely enough. After drinking the milk with dragon bones, Roy's first reaction was that the dragon bones were not ground finely enough, which affected the taste a bit. But it's not a big deal. It doesn't matter whether the taste is good or not, what matters is whether the dragon bone is effective. According to Murakami and others, dragon bones can not only be used to resurrect the dead and prolong life, but can also be used to strengthen the body and recover from injuries. Although he now has a physique far superior to that of ordinary people, Roy doesn't mind making his physique better. No one will complain that they have too much money, and no one will complain that they have too good a physique. It wasn't long before Roy felt the energy that Murakami and his friends described as a warm current. At the same time, an information panel that only he could see appeared in his sight. The host gains extraordinary energy. Physical fitness is slightly enhanced. Slightly enhanced? After seeing the information given by the system, Roy showed an expression of as expected. Although dragon bones have the effect of strengthening the physical body, the strengthening brought by dragon bones is not outrageous. Murakami and his team are a good example. According to Murakami and his friends, when they defected from Kunlun, they stole nearly 100 kilograms of dragon bones. Over the past few hundred years, they have used dragon bones to prolong their lifespan and strengthen their physical fitness. Even so, their physical fitness has not been strengthened to an outrageous degree, it just slightly exceeds the human limit. Roy's physical attributes far exceed those of Murakami and the others, so the enhancement brought by the dragon bone is even less. After turning off the information panel, Roy didn't make any other breakfast. He went to the garage and drove towards Midtown High School. More than half an hour later, he arrived at the parking lot of Midtown High School. Just as he was looking for a suitable parking space to park, Peter and Gwen appeared in his sight. He parked in the spot near Peter and Gwen. Before he could get out of the car, Peter and Gwen came over. Although it was not known what Peter and Gwen were about, it was obvious that they were waiting for him here. After getting out of the car, Roy said to them, "What do you want to talk to me about?" "A special case happened at Coney Island yesterday afternoon," Peter said immediately. "I saw it on the news." Roy looked at Peter calmly. "You just happened to take Mary Jane to the beach at Coney Island yesterday?" Gwen said as she looked at Roy and frowned. "You suspect I did it?" Roy asked them back. "Yes, we suspect that you killed the lizard monsters and mysterious soldiers in the amusement park." They spoke quickly to each other. "If I really killed him, what are you going to do?" "Call the police and arrest me." Roy continued to ask. Amount. After hearing his words, Gwen and Peter fell silent at the same time. That's not what we meant. We just... Roy interrupted Peter before he finished speaking and said slowly, no need to explain. I can tell you clearly now that your suspicion is correct. I killed them all. Having said that, he paused, raised his right hand, and released the adamantium bone claw in front of Gwen and Peter. That's what I used to kill them. If you want to call the police, then go ahead. After saying this, Roy ignored the surprised expressions on Gwen and Peter's faces, and without waiting for their answers, he retracted the adamantium claws into his body and walked straight towards the teaching building. Before coming to school, he had guessed that Gwen and Peter would suspect him of the Coney Island massacre. However, he didn't expect Gwen and Peter to be waiting for him in the parking lot. As for why we should admit it, the reason is very simple. Because this kind of thing can be concealed for a while, but not forever. In addition, he also wanted to know what choices Gwen and Peter would make after knowing the truth. If Gwen and Peter chose to call the police or try to arrest him, then Gwen and Peter would be his enemies. He will show no mercy to his enemies. Noon. School canteen. Roy and Mary Jane were chatting and laughing while eating lunch. At this moment, Peter came to him and said to him, "Can we go outside and talk?" Roy glanced at Peter and asked, "Just the two of us?" "No, Gwen is waiting for us outside," Peter replied. After hearing his answer, Roy said to Mary Jane, "I'm done, take your time." Mary Jane, who was considerate, replied quickly. "The spectator stands at a football stadium. From the looks of you, you should have already come to a conclusion. Tell me, what are you going to do?" Roy looked at Gwen and Peter calmly and spoke slowly. "We're not going to call the police, but we want to know why you did this. We can understand that you killed the lizard monster. But those soldiers are just ordinary people. Even if they attacked tourists, they should be punished by law instead of being killed directly," Gwen said quickly. "Punish them by law?" After hearing Gwen's words, Roy smiled and shook his head, and said slowly, "Although your academic performance is very good, I have to say that your ideas are very naive. Let's not talk about who they are yet. I'm going to ask you two questions. First, do you really think the law can punish them? Second, do you think it is more important for them to face the law, or for the lives of innocent people and police officers to be more important?" End of this chapter. Chapter 23 Nightlife. Chapter 23 Nightlife. Gwen and Peter didn't answer Roy right away, but looked at each other. Then Peter said, "As long as they are arrested by the police, the law can certainly punish them. In addition, according to the information released by the police, they used non-lethal weapons. Their purpose was to capture the lizard monster, not to kill it. The tourists who were knocked unconscious by them are not in danger of life now." Roy wasn't particularly surprised that Peter would give such an answer. Although Peter is very smart and has good academic performance, he now has no social experience. It's not just Peter, Gwen is almost the same. They are now typical greenhouse flowers and have never seen the true appearance of American society. Under the gaze of Peter and Gwen, Roy said slowly, "Yes, they did use so-called non-lethal weapons, but non-lethal weapons can also kill people. Let me put it this way. If I hadn't killed them, they would have fought with the police who arrived at the scene. The tourist did not die because the police immediately provided initial treatment to the unconscious tourist after arriving at the scene. Otherwise, there would be dozens of bodies in the hospital morgue due to anesthesia overdose. I haven't read the information released by the police, but I think the police should not have announced that the anesthetic in the tranquilizer bullet has reached a lethal level." Back to the issue of legal sanctions, even if they are arrested by the police, they will not be subject to legal sanctions because it won't take long before they are rescued by their companions. With Hydra's ability, jailbreaking is as easy as drinking water. Although what Roy said was true, Peter and Gwen still did not quite agree with him. "This is all speculation on your part, you don't have any evidence to prove it." Peter continued. "You want evidence, right? I can give it to you right now." After saying that, Roy took out a tranquilizer gun and a metal helmet that he had snatched from a Hydra soldier from the system space. Peter and Gwen both looked surprised when they saw him take out a rifle-like tranquilizer gun and a metal helmet out of thin air as if by magic. Roy had never shown them the existence of the system space before. He first threw the metal helmet to Peter and said slowly, "I got this helmet from another group of people in the same organization. You should be familiar with the logo on the helmet." Without waiting for Peter and Gwen to answer, he removed the magazine of the tranquilizer gun, took out a few tranquilizer bullets from it, and handed them to Gwen. "You can tell if the anesthetic in the tranquilizer bullet has reached a lethal level by testing it." After saying that, he put the magazine back onto the tranquilizer gun and threw the tranquilizer gun back into the system space. After seeing the Hydra logo on the metal helmet, Peter and Gwen's expressions became extremely complicated. As Native Americans, they are no strangers to Hydra. After all, they grew up listening to stories about Captain America. In addition, there are several Captain America memorials in New York. Visiting the Captain America Memorial Museum is an activity that almost every elementary school in New York will attend. Wasn't Hydra destroyed by Captain America and the Scientific Strategic Corps during World War II? Peter said, frowning. "Cut off one head and two more will grow." "You must have all heard this classic slogan of Hydra," Roy said casually. Peter and Gwen were silent. 10 or so seconds passed like this, and Gwen said slowly, "Besides Coney Island, where else did you meet them?" "Hell's Kitchen," Roy replied. "Hell's Kitchen?" Peter and Gwen frowned again after hearing his answer. Although they have never been to Hell's Kitchen, they know what kind of place it is. "How could you?" Before Peter could finish his words, he was interrupted by Roy. "Why I ended up in Hell's Kitchen and why I met Hydra in Hell's Kitchen is a little complicated. If you want to know more, come to my house after school." After saying that, he took the metal helmet from Peter's hand and threw it back into the system space. "It is good," Gwen and Peter replied at the same time. 3 p.m. The living room of the original home. Gwen and Peter sat on the sofa in the living room a little awkwardly, looking around. They knew that the original body's parents were a lawyer and a doctor, but they had never been to the original body's home, let alone thought that the original body's home would be so luxurious. "Where are your parents? Aren't they at home?" Peter asked Roy. "They are traveling around the world." "What do you drink? Tea, mineral water, juice, soda, or beer?" Roy asked. "Anything but beer is fine." Gwen was the first to reply. "I drink soda," Peter then said. Roy nodded, took out a bottle of mineral water and a bottle of frozen Fat House Happy Water from the system space, and handed them to the two of them. After taking a look at the mineral water and Fat House Happy Water in each other's hands, Peter and Gwen showed puzzled expressions. They had already seen Roy pull out a tranquilizer gun and a metal helmet out of thin air. But they didn't expect that the Fat House Happy Water and mineral water that Roy took out would be in two completely different states. Mineral water is at normal room temperature, while Fat House Happy Water is like it has just been taken out of the refrigerator. Although the system space cannot store living things, it has an unparalleled preservation effect. To put it simply, the state of the things when you put them in is the same state when you take them out. Is this the superpower you developed after being bitten by a super spider? Peter asked immediately. No, I had already awakened my superpowers before I was bitten by the spider. Aren't you all wondering why I suddenly became a different person? Because I awakened my superpowers and found my life goal. Roy said calmly. Whether now or in the future, he will not reveal the existence of the system to anyone. Just as Peter was about to say something else, he took out a bottle of ice-cold Corona beer from the system space, opened the cap, and took a sip. Corona beer is the world's best-selling Mexican beer and is also #1 on the American imported beer list. It has a slightly bitter taste and some malt flavor. You are under 21. Gwen spoke up, reminding Roy that he was not yet of legal drinking age. The law also stipulates that you cannot kill people. Forget it, let's not talk about this anymore, let's talk about Hell's Kitchen. I've been fighting crime my way in Hell's Kitchen for over a month now. At this point, Roy took out a tablet from the system space, logged into the dark web forum of the New York underworld, opened all the posts in it, and placed the tablet in front of Gwen and Peter. The man with the steel claw mask mentioned in the post is me. You can take a look first. Gwen immediately picked up the tablet in front of her and quickly browsed through it with Peter. Time passes little by little. In addition to the post that Roy opened, they also read several other posts on the forum related to the steel claw masked man. You asked us if we wanted to be superheroes before, because you were already fighting crime in Hell's Kitchen. Peter asked immediately. That's it. But now you can see that the way I fight crime is different from what you imagine. The methods I use are much more cruel. Some time ago, I stopped a drug deal by the hand. They have been wanting to take revenge on me and that guy called Daredevil. The night before last, they set a trap and lured out Daredevil. While rescuing him, I killed 2 leaders of the hand. At the Coney Island amusement park, I learned from the lizard monster that those mysterious soldiers were sent by Hydra. Last night, I went to the hand's headquarters, intending to kill the other 3 leaders of the hand, and unexpectedly discovered that the hand had colluded with Hydra. Then, I killed them all. The metal helmet you saw was taken from one of the Hydra soldiers. Roy looked at Peter and Gwen calmly and spoke slowly. Although his tone and expression were calm, after listening to his story, Peter and Gwen both felt like they were listening to an urban legend. Your nightlife is special. Peter said slowly. Okay. You can have the same nightlife if you want. Roy replied. End of this chapter. Chapter 24, Captain America is frozen. Chapter 24, Captain America is frozen. You told us all this, aren't you afraid that we might suddenly change our minds and call the police? Gwen looked at Roy seriously and spoke. There's nothing to be afraid of. First, you have carefully considered this for the entire morning and have decided not to call the police. Second, you are smart people. You know that even if you call the police, it will be useless. It will also directly offend me and turn your relationship from classmates into enemies. Roy said slowly. After hearing his answer, Gwen fell silent and said nothing more. I still can't accept that you kill criminals at will. But I won't stop you. Or rather, I don't have the ability to stop you. I will fight crime in my own way. Peter glanced at Gwen first, then said to Roy. Up to you. You are free to use whatever method you want. But I have to remind you that Hydra is very interested in superhumans. You'd better not let Hydra discover your true identity. Otherwise, everyone you care about will become Hydra's weakness against you. Roy said slowly. I won't let anyone else know I have superpowers except you guys. Peter said quickly. Roy nodded and said nothing more. Washington, D.C. The Triskelion Building, headquarters of SHIELD. Director's Office. Nick Fury, the damnedest guy, sat behind his desk, looking expressionlessly at the case that had just been reported by the New York branch. After reviewing the case in its entirety, he picked up the phone on the table, dialed an internal number, and quickly said, Ask Agent Romanoff and Agent Barton to come to my office. Yes, sir. The assistant on the other end of the line responded quickly. A few minutes later, Black Widow Natasha and Hawkeye Barton, dressed in casual clothes, came to Nick Fury's office. Without waiting for them to speak, Nick Fury handed them the tablet computer in his hand and said, This is the case just reported by the New York branch. Take a look. Natasha, who has a charming appearance and a hot body, immediately took the tablet and quickly browsed it with Hawkeye Barton. Soon, they finished reading all the contents. Do you want us to go over there and investigate the whereabouts of Hydra, or capture the Steel Claw masked man who destroyed the hand? Natasha placed the tablet on the desk and said to Nick Fury. The fact that Hydra has not been completely eradicated is not a particularly confidential matter within SHIELD. All SHIELD agents of Agent Level 6 and above know about this. SHIELD branches around the world have also reported many cases of Hydra capturing superhumans. It's not just these two things, there's one more thing. Nick Fury said slowly. What else? Hawkeye asked. Wake up Steve Rogers. After hearing what Nick Fury said, Black Widow Natasha and Hawkeye Barton frowned at the same time. 3 months ago, a research team conducting a scientific expedition in the Arctic Ocean accidentally discovered a strangely shaped aircraft wreckage. After receiving the news, SHIELD immediately sent a team to the Arctic Ocean. Then, they found Steve Rogers, who had been frozen for 70 years. Although Rogers was found frozen 3 months ago, SHIELD has not awakened him. To be more precise, he has not been thawed, but placed in a secret base in New York. As for why he was not unfrozen immediately, the reason was simple, because Nick Fury had not yet figured out what to do with Rogers. Now, seeing that Hydra has begun capturing superhumans in New York and is colluding with the Hand, Nick Fury has finally made a decision. He has been asleep for 70 years. It is time to wake him up and continue his mission to destroy Hydra. Nick Fury said slowly. Black Widow Natasha and Hawkeye Barton looked at each other first, then nodded. Half a month later. The Queen. Is this kid named Roy Chen really the Steel Claw masked man who made all the major gangs in New York tremble with fear some time ago? Jem, the new agent who had just graduated from the SHIELD Academy a few months ago, looked at the Ford Raptor in front of him and said with a puzzled look on his face. I think it's correct. The New York branch investigated for a week before finally identifying this guy. If nothing unexpected happens, he is the man with the steel claw mask. Sitting in the passenger seat, Derek, a man in his 40s with a weathered look, spoke slowly. It's not that I don't believe the New York branch's investigation results, but this guy doesn't look like the man with the steel claw mask. We've been following him for a week and have gained nothing. Aside from bringing a different beautiful woman home every night, he's no different than any other high school kid. By the way, I'm curious as to how he got those women. Let's not talk about the high school girls who go to the same school as him. After all, this guy is now a celebrity in Central City High School. But it's really strange that models, flight attendants, nurses, policewomen, and college girls who are several years older than him are willing to go home with him. He is quite handsome, but he is not popular with so many women. Young Agent Jem began to chatter away. When he first received the tracking assignment, he was very happy and felt that he could finally go out on field work. But after tracking for a few days, he found that this tracking mission was extremely boring. In addition to being bored, he also felt a little jealous every time he saw Roy coming home with a new beautiful woman he met. After hearing his words, Derek, who was sitting in the co-pilot seat, said with a smile, "Why don't you go up and ask him if he is willing to teach you a few tricks?" "Are you kidding me? I need him to teach me how to pick up girls. If I hadn't devoted myself to work, I could have played more than him. Back then, I was a popular figure in school. I wonder how many girls wanted to be my girlfriend." Jem looked at Derek seriously. "Is it? But I heard that someone was rejected by 5 or 6 female students in the SHIELD Academy, and he didn't have a girlfriend until he graduated. By the way, half a month ago, he seemed to have been rejected by Tracy from the Information Support Department," Derek said slowly. Jem's expression suddenly changed, and he quickly said, "As a partner, you actually investigated me privately." "No, I didn't investigate you privately. This is what others told me." Derek shook his head and spoke slowly. Just as Jem was about to say something else, Derek continued, "The light is green, hurry up and follow us. Don't lose us." Oh! Jem stepped on the accelerator and caught up with Roy, who had already passed the intersection. Roy, who was driving, glanced at the rearview mirror and said to Gwen in the passenger seat, "The people in the white Chevrolet behind me have been following me for several days. This is the third car they have changed in the past few days." End of this chapter. Chapter 25, Parting Ways. Chapter 25, Parting Ways. Are they sent by the police or Hydra? After hearing Roy's words, Gwen first glanced at the rearview mirror, then frowned and asked, "It's still impossible to determine who they are, but they are probably not from Hydra. If they were from Hydra, they would not have followed me secretly, but would have attacked me directly." Roy replied calmly. He spotted the two of them the day after Jem and Derek followed him. At first, he, like Gwen, thought they were sent by Hydra. But after finding out that they were just following him and not doing anything else, he dismissed the speculation. "So what do we do now? Do we still go see Peter?" Gwen continued to ask. "Why not? If they want to follow us, let them. We are not going to do anything illegal anyway." Roy replied calmly. After knowing that he was the masked man with steel claws who was hated by many New York gangs, Peter and Gwen showed completely different attitudes. Peter eventually chose to part ways with him and fight crime in his own way. And Gwen trusted him more and more. Although Gwen did not particularly approve of his methods, she felt that what he did was a bit cruel. But she was not as idealistic as Peter and knew that this was inevitable. Her father, George Stacy, was a sergeant in the New York Police Department. She had often heard from George about the tragedies of some police officers dying at the hands of criminals because of unnecessary mercy and negligence. In addition, she will trust Roy more and more, which is also inseparable from Roy's confession and the King of Cards' superpower, psychedelic power. Although he already has Mary Jane as his poker partner, Roy still has the idea of making Gwen his poker partner as well. If the opportunity was right, he wouldn't mind having a thrilling, exciting, and pleasurable game of landlord with Mary Jane and Gwen. "So how are you going to get rid of them?" Gwen looked at Roy and spoke slowly. "No need to shake them off, they don't know we're going to get Peter's web shooter. From their perspective, we were just going to meet other students after school." Roy replied calmly. After spending more than half a month on improvements, Peter finally came up with the final version of the spider web launcher and spider silk solution. Although Roy and Gwen haven't got the web shooter yet, according to Peter, he has conducted various tests on the web shooter and spider silk solution, and there will definitely not be any problems. In addition to the manufactured spider web launchers and spider silk solution, Peter will also hand over to them all the information about the spider web launchers and the formula of the spider silk solution later. In other words, this was the last cooperation between the three of them. Gwen nodded and said nothing more. After driving for more than half an hour, Roy and Gwen finally arrived at the place Peter mentioned. This is a coffee shop located near Peter's home. Arriving at the coffee shop, Roy and Gwen quickly spotted Peter. At this time, Peter was sitting at a table by the window with a backpack next to him. When Roy and Gwen came and sat down in front of him, he immediately picked up the backpack next to him and said to them, "The spider web shooter and spider silk solution are both inside. You can find a place to test them later. There are 2 USB flash drives in the backpack, which contain all the information about the web shooter and the spider silk solution. If the web shooter malfunctions, or the spider silk solution runs out, you can handle it yourselves." Roy took the backpack handed to him by Peter, unzipped it and took a look. Then, he zipped it up again and said to Peter, "Thanks. No, you provided the original design of the spider web launcher and gave me enough funds to buy materials. I just completed the transaction as agreed," Peter said slowly. After hearing his answer, Roy continued, "I am being followed by someone now, and I am not sure if it is the police. If someone asks you about it in the future, you can say that the backpack contains study notes and I came to borrow your notes. Being followed? Peter frowned immediately. Although he was somewhat curious about who was following Roy, he did not ask any more questions and said slowly, "You don't need to teach me, I know what to do. If there's nothing else, I'll go back first." After saying that, Peter got up and left the coffee shop. When he left, Gwen turned to look at Roy, frowned, and said, "Are you sure you don't want to repair your relationship? We are all classmates after all. We have had the same experiences and obtained the same superpowers. There is no need to make the relationship so awkward. He is distancing himself from me now, not because I did anything to him. Since he has chosen to part ways with me, I respect his choice," Roy said slowly. Although he never thought of becoming good friends with Peter, he wouldn't mind joining forces with Peter to fight some supervillains. However, it turned out that Peter was more old-fashioned than he thought. Just when Gwen was about to say something else, Roy continued, "Let's not talk about this anymore. Let's go back to..." Gwen nodded. Roy first sent Gwen back home and gave her a pair of spider web shooters and some spider silk solution. He drove home only after Gwen went upstairs. Night. After finishing dinner at a Chinese restaurant near the community, Roy hailed a taxi on the roadside and prepared to start his nightlife. In the past half-month, he has not been to Hell's Kitchen, but has started to live a real nightlife. After obtaining the deposits of Mrs. Gao and others in overseas banks, he no longer needed to make money by cheating others. Now he is a billionaire with more than $200 million in deposits. It didn't take long for the driver to take him to his destination. Fox and Bullet Nightclub. This is a nightclub with considerable fame in Queens. In the past half-month, Roy has visited most of the famous nightclubs in Queens. The stewardesses, models, nurses, policewomen, female college students and others whom he brought home to spend the night were all people he met in these nightclubs. In order to make it easier for himself to enter nightclubs, he spent several $1,000s to get a fake driver's license. Although not all nightclubs will check age, it is better to be prepared. There was a long queue at the entrance of the nightclub. Roy did not queue up like other guests. Instead, he went straight to the bald man who was standing at the entrance of the nightclub, wearing a black t-shirt that looked like a tights. End of this chapter. Chapter 26 Black Widow and Number 039, S Beauty Trap. Chapter 26 Black Widow's Beauty Trap. Most nightclubs in America require tickets to enter. The cheap ones only cost a few dollars, while the expensive ones cost dozens of dollars. The exact amount depends on the specific circumstances of the nightclub. After giving the bald man $300, he did not check Roy's ID and directly pulled the red lanyard on the concierge column. Roy has been here several times and each time he pays $300 to skip the line. After seeing him walk straight into the nightclub, Jem, who had parked the car on the other side of the street, said to Derek in the passenger seat, "After this mission is over, I will definitely report these nightclubs. Save your energy. Reporting it will be useless. That kid won't come out for a while, do you want to eat?" Before Derek could finish his words, the phone in his pocket began to vibrate. Without any hesitation, he immediately took out his cell phone. Then, he frowned slightly. "What happened?" Jem asked immediately after noticing his frown. "The mission is over. Let's report back to the New York branch immediately," Derek said slowly. "What?" Jem looked at Derek in confusion. Before he could speak, Derek continued, "Don't ask me. I don't know what's going on. This is the order given by headquarters." After that, Derek showed the phone screen to Jem. Although he didn't know why the headquarters suddenly issued an order to end the tracking mission, Jem still started the car and drove towards the New York branch of SHIELD. Inside the nightclub, Roy walked through the crowded crowd and went straight to the bar, where he ordered a bottle of Jack Daniel's Black Label from the bartender. Whether in America or in Great Britain, the home base of whiskey, Jack Daniel's is the best-selling whiskey. The Jack Daniel's Black Label that Roy ordered, also known as Old No. 7, is Jack Daniel's best-selling product. Compared to bourbon, Jack Daniel's, which insists on using sugar maple charcoal for filtration, has a smoother taste. Because it is only filtered once, Old No. 7 has a distinct oak barrel flavor. Jack Daniel's is the first choice for young people when they enter nightclubs. Roy, as a young man, is of course no exception. He poured himself a quarter of the drink without ice or Coke and drank it in one gulp. Then, he looked around, looking for his card-playing partners for tonight. Soon, a woman with charming looks and sexy figure appeared in his sight. She was someone he had never seen before, but she was not unfamiliar to him. Scarlet. No, it should be Black Widow Natasha Romanoff. As soon as Roy's eyes fell on the Black Widow Natasha, who was wearing a black hip skirt that perfectly showed off her sexy curves, walked towards him. When he saw the Black Widow Natasha walking towards him, a word immediately flashed through his mind. Beauty plan. Black Widow Natasha is going to use her beauty trap on him. At the same time, Roy finally found out who Jem and Derek were, who had been following him for several days. No wonder they just stalked secretly and did nothing else. After guessing that Jem and Derek who were following him were agents of SHIELD, Roy also guessed why Black Widow Natasha used the beauty trap. Since routine tracking doesn't reveal any problems, let's use the beauty trap to collect intelligence at close range. Using beauty tricks to gather intelligence is a compulsory course for female spies. Natasha, the Black Widow, is the best among female spies. Not long after, she came in front of Roy and looked at him with interest. Then, he said softly, "Can you buy me a drink?" Although approaching someone directly would seem too purposeful, Black Widow Natasha still chose to take the initiative to approach them. As for the reason, it's simple. Because the preliminary investigation showed that Roy was a man who had no resistance to beauty. In other words, he was a very lustful man. In this case, there is no need to design other methods. The Black Widow Natasha looked at Roy with her big, loving eyes. Just when she thought Roy would buy her a drink immediately, Roy shook his head and said seriously, "No. No?" Black Widow Natasha looked at Roy with surprise, and several thoughts immediately flashed through her mind. Is there something wrong with my outfit today? Or does he have a date with someone else tonight? Does he know who I am? Although it was somewhat unexpected, Black Widow Natasha was not someone who would give up easily. She continued, "Why not? You don't have any other female companions. You don't look like a stingy man, can't you even buy me a drink?" After saying that, Black Widow Natasha came and sat down next to Roy. "I don't like old women who are older than me," Roy said slowly. "Old woman? Am I an old woman?" Although Black Widow Natasha has extremely rich spy experience and excellent emotional control ability, an angry expression inevitably appeared on her face when she heard Roy call her an old woman. After taking a deep breath, she continued, "I also don't like those stingy little guys whose hair hasn't fully grown." After that, she said to the bartender, "A glass of single malt Jameson." Soon, the bartender poured her a glass of Jameson. Under Roy's gaze, she drank the Jameson in the glass, ignored Roy and looked at the other men in the nightclub. Although Roy did not take the bait as easily as she had imagined, she quickly calmed down and concluded that Roy was playing hard to get. She was very confident about her looks and figure, and didn't think she was any worse than any of the women Roy had brought home some time ago. In addition, in order to attract Roy's attention, she also deliberately wore a black hip skirt that could fully show off her sexy curves. To be precise, it was a black hip skirt that revealed her white shoulders and a large area of fair skin on her chest. In addition, she also wore black high heels with red solace and black stockings with letters on them that could increase attack speed and critical strike. In her opinion, with her figure and looks, plus today's outfit, winning over the lustful Roy would be as easy as drinking water. However, it turned out that she overestimated herself. Black Widow Natasha is indeed a very attractive beauty. But Roy is not someone who would be easily hooked. In addition, advanced hunters often appear as prey. Rather than being the prey hunted by the Black Widow Natasha, he would rather be the hunter hunting the Black Widow Natasha. When the Black Widow Natasha pretended to look for other men, Roy also began to look for prey that could interest him. Not long after, a woman in her early 20s, wearing a red dress, with big golden waves, a hot body and good looks, came to Roy and took the initiative to greet him. After taking a look at the other person and confirming that she looked like what he liked, Roy started talking to the blonde beauty named Ellie. During the conversation, he occasionally used his superpower of psychedelic power, and captured Ellie's heart without much effort, making Ellie want to take him to the bathroom to have a big fuck right now. Although psychedelic power cannot read the target's thoughts and control the target like telepathy, it is extremely useful when picking up girls. After seeing Roy and Ellie hugging each other like an adulterous couple, Natasha, the Black Widow, who was surrounded and chatted up by several men, showed an unhappy expression. Her mission tonight was simple, which was to use the beauty trap on Roy to find out what Roy's Steel Claw's superpowers were and to confirm whether he had other superpowers. This should have been a straightforward task. But the current development is completely different from what she planned. According to her plan, Roy should have been anxious to take her home. After silently complaining about Roy in her heart, Black Widow Natasha rejected the invitations of the men around her and left the nightclub without looking back. Not long after Black Widow Natasha left, Roy also took Ellie out of the nightclub and came to the street outside, ready to take Ellie back to spend a night of joy for both body and mind. However, as they stood on the side of the road waiting for a taxi, Roy's spider sense suddenly gave a reminder. Without any hesitation, Roy pushed Ellie away and jumped to the side. As soon as he left, a black arrow flew over where he had been standing and hit the wall behind him. End of this chapter. Chapter 27 My Rules Are Rules. Chapter 27 My Rules Are Rules. Roy ignored Ellie, whom he pushed away, and turned to look at the arrow that hit the wall and bounced away. After glancing at the arrow, he looked toward the roof of a building across the street. It was obvious that the arrow was shot from the roof of the opposite building. Although he hadn't seen the person shooting the arrows yet, a name flashed through Roy's mind. Hawkeye Clint Barton. Apart from Hawkeye Barton, he couldn't think of anyone else who would shoot him with an arrow. Just when Ellie was about to say something, Roy walked towards the building across the street without any hesitation and without looking back. Before long, he arrived at the alley next to the opposite building. He did not take out the spider web launcher from the system space and put it on, nor did he hold the wall with both hands. Instead, he walked up the wall as if it were flat ground. Soon, he arrived at the rooftop and saw Natasha the Black Widow in a black hip skirt and Hawkeye Barton in casual clothes, carrying a quiver and holding a recurve bow in his hand. Neither Black Widow Natasha nor Hawkeye Barton showed any surprise at his arrival. It's endless, isn't it? Since the beauty trap doesn't work, you're testing me with archery. Roy looked at Black Widow and Hawkeye with a cold expression and said coldly. If I don't shoot an arrow at you, how can you pass? Before Black Widow Natasha could finish her words, she saw a poker card shining with purple light flying towards her at a high speed. Just as the playing card was about to hit Black Widow, Hawkeye immediately shot an arrow and hit the playing card. Bang! After being hit by the arrow, the energy on the playing card suddenly exploded, repelling the incoming arrow. At the same time, the playing cards disappeared without a trace due to the explosion. From the look of you, you should have guessed who we are. We have no ill intentions, we just want to chat with you. Black Widow Natasha continued. You shot an arrow at my chest and called that harmless. S.H.I.E.L.D's definition of malicious intent is truly eye-opening. Roy sneered at Black Widow and Hawkeye with disdain on his face. After hearing his answer, Black Widow continued, we know that you have a self-healing and regeneration ability far beyond that of ordinary people. Even if the arrow hits you, it will not pose a threat to your life. Even if I have super strong self-healing and regeneration abilities, it doesn't mean you can just attack me at will." As he spoke, Roy took out a brand new, unopened deck of playing cards from the system space. After throwing the card box, the merchant's promotional sign, and the 2 Joker cards back into the system space, he continued, "You want to talk to me, right? No problem. As long as you can survive these 52 cards, I can give you a chance to talk to me." As soon as he finished speaking, Roy threw the playing cards in his hand up, and 52 playing cards scattered like flowers from heaven. The poker cards that had been injected with energy did not fall under the influence of gravity, but floated in the air. Under Roy's control, the 52 poker cards shining with purple light began to spin like cold weapon darts and flew around him. In the past half-month or so, he indeed did not go to Hell's Kitchen to rob and eat. But he still did not give up practicing the superpowers granted by the cards. After seeing this scene, Black Widow and Hawkeye's expressions suddenly became extremely serious. Before they could say anything, Roy controlled the playing cards and attacked them. "Call out! Call out!" Without any hesitation, Hawkeye demonstrated the rapid shooting ability that a top archer should have, and shot 2 arrows in the blink of an eye. Hawkeye does have excellent archery skills. Even so, the arrows he shot still failed to hit any of the poker cards. Just when the arrow was about to hit the playing card, the high-speed flying playing card changed its flight trajectory under Roy's precise control and avoided the arrow shot by Hawkeye. Although a little surprised, Black Widow and Hawkeye did not hesitate at all and immediately began to dodge flexibly. Compared to ordinary people, they are indeed much stronger as top agents. Even so, they still couldn't dodge for long. After just 2 or 3 seconds, they were hit by the playing cards. After the first time, the rest is easier. Bang 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 bang. The playing cards infused with explosive energy kept hitting them, and explosions continued to sound. Chest, back, hands, legs, head. Roy showed no mercy or favoritism towards girls, and gave each of them 26 playing cards. When the last 2 playing cards hit their chests one after another and knocked them out, they both looked completely different. The clothes on his body became tattered, like a beggar's clothes. His face was covered in blood and his body was covered with scars from the exploding playing cards. In addition to the scars visible to the naked eye, they also suffered serious internal injuries, including concussion, internal bleeding, fractures, etc. You fell before I even exerted any strength. This is no match for the top agents of SHIELD. Roy stood there and spoke to Black Widow and Hawkeye, who were lying on the ground with weak breath. Although they are important characters in the Marvel Universe, their strength is indeed not strong. Go back and tell Nick Fury not to mess with me, otherwise he will regret it. After saying that, Roy ignored Black Widow and Hawkeye, walked to the edge of the roof and jumped down. A few minutes later, he and Ellie took a taxi back to their residence. Although some things happened tonight that were not planned, he did not intend to change his original goal for tonight. Bring a beautiful girl home to play poker. After they left in a taxi, 3 black SUVs with the SHIELD logo on them appeared at the end of the street. The next morning, after sending Ellie away with a look of reluctance on her face, Roy went to the kitchen, made himself a cup of dragon bone milk, and prepared a simple breakfast. After finishing breakfast, he came to the garage and drove towards Midtown High School. While driving to Midtown High School, he also took special care to observe the surrounding vehicles. After confirming that SHIELD did not continue to send people to follow him, he knew that his warning last night had worked. For ordinary people, SHIELD is indeed a powerful official agency. But in reality, SHIELD isn't as powerful as people think. Apart from having more people and resources, and the backing of the American government and the United Nations, SHIELD is no different in essence from official agencies such as the FBI, CIA, and the Agency for Homeland Defense. To put it simply, S.H.I.E.L.D. lacks truly advanced combat capabilities. Although he has only loaded 3 cards, Wolverine, Gambit, and Spider-Man, Roy still doesn't take S.H.I.E.L.D. seriously. If Nick Fury insists on making things difficult for him, he doesn't mind being a patriarch and letting S.H.I.E.L.D. and America know what "my rules are the rules" means. S.H.I.E.L.D.'s New York branch. Medical room. Wearing a long black windbreaker, Mad Max Nick Fury used his only right eye to look at Black Widow and Hawkeye lying on the hospital bed with a serious expression. Although Black Widow and Hawkeye are still alive, their situation is not good at all. If the support had not arrived in time last night and the New York branch had not had top medical standards that were not inferior to any hospital in New York, there would be 2 more names on the sacrifice wall of the S.H.I.E.L.D. Academy. After observing the still unconscious Black Widow and Hawkeye, Nick Fury said to Agent Hill, "Where is Captain America now?" Miami. The Miami branch discovered traces of Hydra a few days ago. He led the Special Forces team there and plans to follow the clues to find other Hydra bases. "Do we need to notify him to come back to New York?" Agent Hill, who had short brown hair, spoke quickly. After a few seconds of silence, Nick Fury continued, "Not for now." "How is the investigation of Roy Chen's parents going? Is there anything special?" "Nothing unusual has been found yet. According to the Paris branch, they are now traveling around Paris like ordinary tourists. Agents from the Paris branch collected their DNA, and we compared their DNA with Roy Chen's DNA. They are indeed Roy Chen's biological parents. In addition, the laboratory conducted a detailed analysis of Roy Chen's DNA and biological samples and found nothing noteworthy. From the analysis results, Roy Chen is just an ordinary person." Agent Hill said, frowning. "Ordinary people? If he is an ordinary person, then there are no superhumans in this world. Notify the laboratory and ask them to find out Roy Chen's secret at all costs." Nick Fury said seriously. "Okay, I'll notify the laboratory right away and have them reanalyze Roy Chen's biological samples and DNA." Agent Hill replied quickly. Both she and Nick Fury knew that a reanalysis would be unlikely to lead to a different conclusion. This is not the first time they have encountered this situation. Whether it is superhumans or superpowers, they do not really abide by the laws of science. Often, wanting to use scientific methods to figure out the secrets of superhumans and superpowers is just wishful thinking. End of this chapter. Chapter 28 Cyclops. Chapter 28 Cyclops. Time flies. More than 10 days passed by unknowingly. During these 10 days, Roy continued to live a life that was no different from other high school students on the surface, but was actually a somewhat decadent life. Although he no longer went to Hell's Kitchen to fight crime, Peter and Gwen both started their own superhero careers. Spider-Man and Spider-Woman. In the past 10 days or so, Peter, wearing a red and blue uniform, and Gwen, wearing a black, white, and pink uniform, have frequently made headlines in major media with the code names Spider-Man and Spider-Woman. Roy didn't engage in superhero activities like them. However, he would occasionally discuss and exchange ideas with Gwen. It was not the kind of competition and exchange that was not suitable for children, but rather a competition and exchange of combat skills and combat experience. In addition, because of the change in pace of life, Roy became Gwen's nominal boyfriend. Whenever her parents asked her where she had been, she would say she was on a date with Roy. There was nothing wrong with that, and Roy didn't mind her using him as an excuse. But the problem is, her father, George Stacy, is a policeman. When Gwen used him as an excuse, he, who had rarely been stopped and questioned by New York police before, was stopped by patrol officers on the street every now and then to check his driver's license and insurance. Sometimes, it happened several times a day. It was obvious that George had arranged for him to have this experience. Roy could understand why George did this. The cabbage that the family had carefully cared for 18 years was taken away by someone, and there were signs that both the cabbage and the pot were taken away. It would be wrong if George could be happy about this. Although Roy was handsome and polite, George still didn't like him at all. Compared to George, who almost had "I don't like you" written on his face, Gwen's mother Helen liked him very much and often asked Gwen to bring him home for dinner. Especially after knowing that the original body's parents were traveling around the world and no one knew when they would come back. Midtown High School. The last class of the morning. Roy opened the system panel that only he could see, waiting for the number of draws to be refreshed. Number of draws, 1. Do you want to start drawing cards? Looking at the system information in front of him, he made his choice immediately without any hesitation. Yes. The moment he made his choice, a row of cards immediately appeared in his sight. Magneto, Polaris, Professor X, Cyclops, Phoenix, Storm, Scarlet Witch, Apocalypse. Before he could finish reading, all the cards were turned over and rolled over quickly one after another. Soon, there was only one card left in front of him. As he watched, the card slowly turned over to the front. When the card turned over, he frowned slightly. Obtain SR Cyclops card. Do you want to load it now? After thinking about it, Roy did not choose to load it immediately. Alternate card, SR Cyclops. The Cyclops card that was not loaded immediately appeared in the spare card. He did not choose to load the Cyclops card immediately, not because he did not like Cyclops's superpowers, nor because the card loading slot was full, but because he was not sure whether there would be any accidents if he loaded the Cyclops card. Although the moment the card is loaded, he will gain all of Cyclops' abilities. However, Cyclops also needs to wear glasses with synthetic ruby quartz crystal lenses to prevent himself from releasing shock beams. He would not load the Cyclops card without first confirming whether he needed to wear glasses with synthetic ruby quartz crystal lenses. Not long after, the bell for the end of Get Out of Class rang. Roy made up an excuse and didn't go to the cafeteria with Mary Jane. He drove out of the school and came to a remote park with few pedestrians and opened the system panel. Do you want to load the SR Cyclops card? After looking around and making sure that there was no one nearby, he closed his eyes and chose to load the Cyclops card. Loaded cards, SR Wolverine, SR Gambit, Special Spider-Man, SR Cyclops. Because he closed his eyes, Roy did not see the information given by the system. However, the moment the Cyclops card was loaded, information about Cyclops' superpowers appeared in his mind. As he knew, Cyclops not only possessed the superpower of visual shock beams. He also has 3 superpowers: spatial awareness, trajectory bending, and energy resistance. Spatial awareness gives Cyclops a far superior sense of trigonometry than that of ordinary people, allowing him to keenly observe the angles of the surfaces of objects, allowing the impact beams he releases to bounce and reflect off these objects. This shooting method that uses bounce and reflection to change the shooting angle is called oblique shooting by Cyclops. When using the superpower of spatial awareness, Cyclops can make the impact beam reflect more than 10 times before accurately hitting the target. As for the track curvature, this is a side effect acquired by Cyclops after being injured. Using the superpower of trajectory bending, he can make the released shock beam attack the target in an arc instead of flying straight towards the target. Unlike tilted shooting, which requires spatial awareness, trajectory bending does not require the use of objects for launching, but can directly twist and bend the flight trajectory of the impact beam. Unlike spatial awareness and trajectory bending, energy resistance is a passive superpower. Energy resistance allows Cyclops to be unaffected by his own powers and withstand the energy released by Shockwave Alex. In the comics, Alex Shockwave is Cyclops' younger brother. In the movie, Alex Shockwave became Cyclops' brother. After browsing the information given by the system, Roy opened his eyes carefully. If he was like Cyclops and needed to wear special glasses to control the shock beams released by his eyes, he would only load the Cyclops card when necessary. He was mentally prepared to lose control of the impact beams released from his eyes. However, it turned out that he was worrying too much. He did not release the impact beam until his eyes were fully open. After discovering that he was not releasing the impact beam uncontrollably, a person immediately flashed through his mind. Deadpool. To be precise, it's Deadpool from the Wolverine movie. In the Wolverine movie, Deadpool, who was transformed into Weapon 11 by William Stryker, also possesses the superpowers of Cyclops. But unlike Cyclops, Deadpool does not need to wear special glasses and can use his eyes to release impact beams at will. If there is any problem, it is that he will have serious dark circles when releasing the impact beam. End of this chapter. Chapter 29, Domestic Violence Drunkard. Chapter 29, Domestic Violence Drunkard. Although he was a little surprised, Roy showed a satisfied expression when he found that he didn't need to wear special glasses all the time like Cyclops. He first took out a mirror from the system space. Then, he immediately used his superpower of visual impact beam. In order to avoid attracting unnecessary attention and damage, he did not use this superpower to its full potential. Instead, he aimed at a tree 20 or 30 meters away and let his eyes shoot out 2 finger-thick, ruby-colored impact beams. Call out! The laser-like impact beam hit the tree trunk accurately, easily penetrating it and leaving 2 holes visible to the naked eye. When the impact beam penetrated the tree, Roy immediately stopped using his superpowers. Although only a small part of the impact beam was released just now, the power displayed by the impact beam is still very satisfactory. In addition, when releasing the impact beam, Roy found that he did not have dark circles like Deadpool, who was transformed into weapon number 11. After putting the mirror back into the system space, he tried out the 2 superpowers of spatial awareness and trajectory bending in the park, experiencing the oblique shooting of the impact beam rebounding and refracting, and the feeling of the impact beam being twisted and bent to attack the target in an arc. After experiencing the slanted shooting and arc attack of the impact beam, Roy left the park with a satisfied look on his face and drove towards Midtown High School. Although the system does not clearly state whether the Cyclops card corresponds to the Cyclops in the movie or the Cyclops in the comics. But after browsing the information given by the system, Roy knew that the abilities granted by the Cyclops card were closer to the comics. Whether it is spatial awareness or trajectory bending, these are abilities that Cyclops only possesses in comics. This meant that the Cyclops card was much stronger than he had initially expected. Cyclops' eyes can release shock beams because his eyes are connected to a special different space. The energy in the alien space used his eyes as a channel and gushed out in the form of beams of light. The maximum power of the shock beam is unknown. However, in the comics, Cyclops has been shown to use his blast beam to penetrate half-inch thick carbon steel plates and destroy adamantium. According to the setting in the comics, the shock beam fired by Cyclops can destroy asteroids. Not long after, Roy drove back to Midtown High School. After looking at the current time, he went straight to the cafeteria and had a simple meal there. 2:45 p.m. The school bell rang on time. I might not be home until very late tonight. If my parents call and ask you about it, just tell them that I'm helping you with your studies at your house. Gwen came up to Roy and spoke softly. Okay, be safe. Roy replied. This wasn't the first time he had helped Gwen cover up a lie. Every time Gwen came home late, she would ask him to help her cover up her lies. Excuses to cover up lies include but are not limited to dating, tutoring, participating in extracurricular group activities, etc. Gwen nodded. Then, he left the school under Roy's gaze. Not long after Gwen left, Mary Jane came to him and said to him, "There's a new private cinema near my house. Do you want to go with me?" Private cinema? Although Mary Jane's words were a little euphemistic, Roy reacted immediately. Ever since they played poker in the car in the open parking lot at Coney Island Beach, Mary Jane seemed to have taken to playing poker outside. Mary Jane had invited him to do this quite a few times over the past month. It is good. Roy replied without any hesitation. Night. After spending a pleasant afternoon in a private cinema near Mary Jane's home and having dinner at the restaurant, Roy drove Mary Jane back home. Just as Mary Jane was about to give him a kiss goodbye as usual, Mary Jane's father Philip pushed open the door with an angry look on his face. He quickly came to the car door, shouting and banging on it hard. "Where have you been? Where is the beer I asked you to sell? What time is it now? You don't go home after school, but just hang out outside to pick up guys. You're just like your mother. You are all bitches, shameless bitches." When Mary Jane saw Philip coming out of the house, she had a bad feeling. Sure enough, just as she guessed, Philip came to the car and cursed at her. After hearing Philip's words, Mary Jane, who was originally full of joy, suddenly became extremely disappointed. Just when she was about to say something, Roy opened the car door and walked down to Philip. "Show some respect, she is your biological daughter after all." Roy grabbed Philip's right forearm, stopping him from banging on the car door, and spoke in a cold tone. "I'm her father. It's none of your business to tell me how to teach my daughter." After saying this, Philip tried to pull back his right hand. However, no matter how hard he tried, his right hand was always firmly grasped by Roy. "You are indeed her father, but she also has her own personality and self-esteem. I'm only warning you once." As he spoke, Roy exerted a little force with his right hand. For him, he only used a tiny bit of strength. But it is not that simple for Philip, who is just an ordinary person. When Roy began to exert force, he felt as if his arm was about to be broken by Roy, and a painful expression appeared on his face. "Let go now. Otherwise, don't blame me for being rude to you," Philip said loudly. "You're not polite to me. What qualifications and strength do you have to be rude to me?" After saying that, Roy twisted slightly, and Philip immediately lost his balance and fell to the ground. Just as Philip was about to say something else, Mary Jane opened the car door, got out, and said to Roy, "Let him go, he's just drunk." Roy released Philip's right hand and said to Mary Jane, "If you don't want to go home, you can bring your luggage and stay at my house for a few days." After hearing his words, Mary Jane immediately showed a surprised expression and asked in disbelief, "Is it really possible?" There are 3 reasons why she, who had never spoken much to her original self before, took the initiative to find Roy. The first is that Roy showed a masculine charm that his original body did not have. He was not as timid and cowardly as his original body. The second is that she likes to be noticed and gain envy and jealousy from other girls. As for the third one, she wanted to use Roy to escape from her original family. Her father Philip was not only an alcoholic, but also a violent one with a bad temper. It was also because of this that her mother Madeline chose to leave. As for why it is leaving instead of divorce, the reason is simple, because Philip will definitely not sign the divorce agreement. Why not? "I have plenty of empty rooms in my house. Go pack your bags, I'll wait for you here." Roy knew that Mary Jane had wanted to move in with him a long time ago, but he had never agreed to her request. Now, after seeing what Philip had done, he changed his mind. Mary Jane is now an adult. Even if he took her away, there was no need to worry about Philip calling the police to complain about him kidnapping an underage girl. Mary Jane nodded, walked into the house without looking back, and disappeared from Roy and Philip's sight. When Philip saw Mary Jane preparing to pack her bags and leave, he immediately stood up and prepared to stop Mary Jane. However, as soon as he stood up, Roy hit him with a liver-bursting punch. Although he didn't use much strength, Philip still fell to the ground with a painful look on his face, unable to say anything. "This punch is for Mary Jane." Roy looked at Philip, who fell to the ground, and spoke slowly. Not long after, Mary Jane packed her luggage and walked out of the house carrying a suitcase. When she saw Philip falling to the ground, she immediately guessed that Philip was beaten by Roy. However, after seeing that Philip had no obvious injuries, she said nothing and went straight to Roy. Putting Mary Jane's suitcase in the back cargo box, Roy drove with Mary Jane towards their residence. As for Philip, he stood there, staring at the car that was getting farther and farther away with anger on his face. End of this chapter. Chapter 30 Private Detective. Chapter 30 Private Detective. The Queen. The original body's home. After bringing Mary Jane home, Roy arranged a guest bedroom for her. As for why he didn't let her sleep in the same room with him, the reason was simple: he didn't like anyone snatching his quilt from him. It is much more comfortable for one person to sleep in a bed than for two people to sleep in one bed. After settling Mary Jane, Roy returned to his bedroom, turned on his computer, and logged into the dark web forum of the New York underworld. Although he no longer goes to Hell's Kitchen to eat and steal, he still logs into the forum from time to time to see if there is anything interesting happening recently. In addition, in this dark web forum, you can also buy many banned items that are not available on the market. For example, the fake driver's license he used before. Time passes little by little. After browsing the forum for more than 10 minutes, Roy saw a post that interested him. This is a post to recruit drug testers. Any newly developed drug must go through 3 processes: animal experimentation, human experimentation, and clinical trial before it can be formally produced and sold. As far as Roy knew, in America, there were many homeless people and people who were short of money who would choose to become drug testers, exchanging their own health for the desired rewards. There are even many college students among them. On the surface, there's nothing wrong with this post. But the problem is that he is now logged into a dark web forum of the New York underworld. This kind of post recruiting drug testers should not appear in this place. After reading the content of the post in detail, the name of the Osborne Group popped up in his mind unconsciously. Could it be that the Osborne Group is really recruiting test subjects for the physical performance enhancement drug? Roy frowned slightly. The post did not specify what drug was being tested. But for some reason, after seeing this post, the first thing he thought of was the Osborne Group. Although the Osborne Corporation is not a villain organization like Hydra, in the Spider-Man movie, the Osborne Corporation is the largest supervillain production company. The Green Goblin, Little Green Goblin, Professor Lizard, Dr. Octopus, Electro, and Rhino are all closely related to the Osborne Group. After thinking for a while, Roy quit the dark web forum. Even if it is really the Osborne Group that is recruiting test subjects, it is no big deal. The final result is nothing more than Norman Osborn becoming the Green Goblin and Harry Osborn becoming the Little Green Goblin. He had just turned off the computer when the bedroom door was pushed open. Mary Jane, wrapped in a bath towel, revealing her shoulders, calves, and strong sense of professionalism, appeared in his sight. Although Mary Jane didn't say anything, after seeing how she was dressed, Roy guessed what Mary Jane was planning. Just as he guessed, after entering the bedroom, Mary Jane first turned around and closed the door. Then, he loosened the towel around his body. As a normal man, Roy made the choice that any normal man would make. Soon, the sounds of playing cards, which were not suitable for children and were exciting and intense, could be heard from the bedroom. After the intense game of cards, Mary Jane leaned close to Roy and said softly, "You're about to graduate. Have you decided which schools to apply to?" After hearing her words, Roy said slowly, "I don't plan to go to college." Mary Jane looked at him with surprise and said quickly, "Why, your grades are so good, you can apply to a lot of good universities." "I just don't want to go to college," Roy replied. If he had not been a crispy shark college student in the flower planting family before traveling through time, he would have tried to apply to a prestigious university in the United States and experience the life of a college student in the United States. But now, he has no intention of going to college at all. To put it bluntly, he went to college just to make more money. He is not short of money now, and he has excellent earning ability. As for other things, such as dating female college students, you can do it regardless of whether they are in college or not. "All right. Actually, I don't want to go to college. My family can't afford the tuition, and I don't want to apply for a college loan. I want to be a musical actor and perform in various classic musicals in Broadway theaters. Mary Jane said slowly. Roy knew early on that she wanted to be a musical actress. After all, in the Spider-Man movies, she is a musical actress. Although he failed to become a well-known musical actor, he still has some fame. Young Miss Watson is a pretty girl, pleasant to the eyes, but not very pleasant to the ears. Her voice was so quiet that it couldn't even reach the second row. This was a public evaluation made by a musical critic in a newspaper after she starred in the musical Memories of Manhattan in a Broadway theater. What about you? If you don't go to college, what are you going to do? Mary Jane asked Roy. I haven't thought about it yet. But for now, I might open a private detective agency and take on commissions that interest me. Roy said slowly. Although his current wealth allows him to live comfortably for the rest of his life, in order to prevent his life after graduation from becoming boring, he came up with the idea of opening a private detective agency. Private detective? Why did you want to be a private detective? Your parents would definitely not agree with you doing this. Mary Jane did it and looked at Roy seriously. Although private detective is a legal profession, compared with lawyers and doctors, private detective seems a bit unprofessional. I don't need their approval. Besides, I'll be moving out and living on my own after graduation. Roy replied. According to the memories left by the original body's parents would try their best to end their world tour before he graduated, or in other words, temporarily interrupt their world tour and come back to attend his graduation ceremony. After lying on the bed and chatting for more than 10 minutes, Roy picked up Mary Jane and walked towards the bathroom. Young people are strong. One game of cards a night is not enough. The next morning, because Mary Jane was there, Roy didn't make himself any more dragon bone milk. To be precise, he didn't even prepare breakfast. Early in the morning, Mary Jane got up and went to the kitchen to prepare a loving breakfast for him. Although her cooking skills are average, it is difficult to make a simple American breakfast taste bad. If she can't even make sandwiches, cereals, and fried eggs taste good, it only shows that she is not suitable for cooking. After eating and drinking, Roy took Mary Jane to Midtown High School. Just as they were about to arrive at the school, a black Chevrolet SUV with the SHIELD logo on it stopped them. The next second, the Black Widow, who had been lying in bed for nearly a week, appeared in their sight. In addition to the Black Widow, there is also a female agent that Roy has never seen before but is not unfamiliar to him. Agent Hill. The female agent who got out of the car with Black Widow was none other than Maria Hill, who was deeply trusted by Fuck You Nick Fury. End of this chapter. Chapter 31, Flight and Void. Chapter 31, Flight and Void. Who are they? Mary Jane, who was sitting in the passenger seat, asked with a frown after seeing Black Widow and Agent Hill get out of the car and walk straight towards them. Government employees who waste taxpayers' money. Wait for me here. After saying that, without waiting for Mary Jane to answer, Roy opened the car door and walked out. Soon, Black Widow and Agent Hill came to him. Can I take a moment of your time to chat in the coffee shop next door? The Black Widow, who was dressed in casual clothes, pointed to the coffee shop next to her and said, No, I still have to go to school. If you have anything to say, just say it here. Roy replied. After hearing his answer, Black Widow frowned slightly and turned to look at Agent Hill. After a few seconds, she continued, with your ability, it would be a waste to be an ordinary student. Join SHIELD. We need talents like you. Join SHIELD? Did you drink too much fake wine so early in the morning? Roy first complained about Black Widow and Agent Hill in his mind, then said, I'm not interested. Not only now, but also in the future. After saying this, he ignored Black Widow and Agent Hill, turned back to the car, and drove towards Midtown High School. Black Widow and Agent Hill stood there, watching the Ford Raptor getting farther and farther away without saying a word. When the Ford Raptor driven by Roy completely disappeared from their sight, Black Widow said to Agent Hill, "What on earth is Fury thinking? He is indeed very powerful, but S.H.I.E.L.D. is not short of manpower to this extent." As soon as she finished speaking, Agent Hill's voice rang out. "I don't know why Fury would want to recruit him to S.H.I.E.L.D. With that, Agent Hill walked towards the black Chevrolet SUV with the S.H.I.E.L.D. logo printed on it. Black Widow said nothing more and followed Agent Hill back to the car. "Are they from S.H.I.E.L.D.?" After leaving the previous street, Mary Jane, who was sitting in the passenger seat, asked Roy. While Roy got out of the car and talked to Black Widow and the others, she searched the internet on her phone. Without much effort, she searched for information about S.H.I.E.L.D. using the S.H.I.E.L.D. logo. Although S.H.I.E.L.D. is not particularly famous now, there is still a lot of information about S.H.I.E.L.D. on the internet. For ordinary people who don't know much about S.H.I.E.L.D., S.H.I.E.L.D. is just an official agency that is not very well known. As for what S.H.I.E.L.D. does, not only do ordinary people not know, even many government employees don't know. Roy nodded. "What do they want from you?" "Nothing, just want to recruit me to join S.H.I.E.L.D. "Have you promised them?" "Of course not. I have no intention of working for the government." Seeing that Roy didn't really want to continue this topic, the considerate Mary Jane didn't continue asking and decisively ended the topic. Not long after, they arrived at Midtown High School and began a high school life that was no different from before. Time flies. 2 months had passed before we knew it, and it was the annual graduation day of Central City High School. During these 2 months, Roy continued to live a decadent life of attending classes during the day and spending time at night. If anything, Mary Jane's arrival slightly reduced his visits to nightclubs and bars to pick up girls. In addition, after picking up beautiful girls who suited his taste in nightclubs and bars, he did not continue to take these girls home to spend the night, but chose to book a room in a hotel outside. Although Mary Jane didn't mind him going to nightclubs and hotels to hunt for beauties, she even tactfully suggested that she could play cards with other women. But Roy still didn't bring other women home to spend the night. Playing landlord with 3 people is indeed more exciting. But not everyone is suitable for playing 3-person landlord. In the past 2 months, Roy has drawn cards twice more. Maybe the novice protection period has passed. In the past 2 card draws, he didn't draw any powerful cards, only an R-level Angel card and an SR-level Phantom Cat card. Although Angel and Phantom are not unknown mutants, their head-on combat capabilities are not strong. However, the superpowers granted by the Angel card and the Phantom Cat card are not bad. The Angel card granted him flight, raptor vision, and a certain degree of physical enhancement. Roy had no objection to the flying ability granted by the Angel card. The only problem is that after loading the Angel card, a pair of white wings will grow from his back. Because he drew an Angel card instead of an Archangel card, the wings he obtained were not metal wings, and he did not have the ability to launch metal feathers as flying knives. The night he drew the Angel card, he drove to the suburbs of New York and did a simple test. Perhaps because of the other cards loaded, he discovered that the flying ability granted by the Angel card was much stronger than he remembered. In the comics, Angels can fly at speeds up to 240 km per hour and at a maximum altitude of 3,000 meters. In addition, the Angel can carry objects and people weighing no more than 91 kilograms. After testing, Roy found that after loading the Angel card, he could achieve a flying speed of 500 km per hour and a maximum flying altitude of 10,000 meters. In addition to his own weight, he can also carry several hundred kilograms of objects while flying. The flying ability granted by the Angel card was much stronger than he remembered. The time travel superpower granted by the Phantom Cat card was no different from what he remembered. After loading the Phantom Cat card, he can not only pass through any obstacle at will, but also use the crossing state to be immune to most attacks. Out of personal preference, he named the time travel superpower granted by the Phantom Cat card virtualization. Because the Angel card would grow wings on its back after loading, he decisively placed the Angel card into the spare cards, leaving the last loading position for the Phantom Cat card. Unless there is a situation that requires flying, he will not load the Angel card. Midtown High School. On the grass next to the teaching building. A temporary stage was built on the spacious lawn, on which sat more than a dozen teachers from Central City High School, and there was also a table full of graduation certificates. William Lambert, principal of Midtown High School, wore a black graduation gown and stood at the podium, delivering an impassioned graduation speech. The graduates, wearing dark blue bachelor's gowns, sat in front of the podium, while the parents of the students who were watching the ceremony sat behind the graduates. From time to time, there was intense applause. Roy paid no attention to what Principal William Lambert said and pulled his cell phone out of his pocket. Yesterday at noon, he received a call from his original body's parents in London, saying that they had bought a ticket back to New York and would be home in the evening. However, until now, he has not met his original body's parents. "Don't worry, they probably just had a delayed flight," Mary Jane said softly as she sat next to Roy. Last night, she changed her outfit on purpose and dressed very ladylike, intending to leave a good first impression on her original body's parents. However, she and Roy waited until 10 o'clock in the evening but still failed to see the original body's parents. "Not only that, since last night, I can't get through to the original body's parents on the phone." Roy knew that Mary Jane was trying to comfort him, but he knew that the original parents did not encounter a flight delay. "If it was just a flight delay, the original parents could have called me instead of having no news at all like now. If nothing unexpected happened, something happened to the original body's parents." He couldn't be sure what exactly happened. Time passes little by little. After finishing his impassioned graduation speech, President William Lambert began to call the graduating students to the podium one by one according to the name list and personally presented them with their diplomas. It wasn't long before he came to Roy's name. Under the gaze of everyone, Roy came to the podium and received his diploma from the principal William Lambert. Perhaps it was because he would never have to meet Roy again, or perhaps he was just happy that he had graduated another class during his term, but William Lambert had a very happy smile on his face. When all the graduating students received their diplomas, the parents who were watching the ceremony came forward to congratulate their children. Gwen's parents, George and Helen, were there. Peter's uncle Ben Parker and Aunt May Parker were also there. As for the parents of Harry, Flash Thompson, Ned, Michelle Jones, and others, they also showed up at the scene. Even Philip and Trian, who had been beaten up by Roy in the past, had relatives and friends coming to congratulate them. On the huge lawn, only a few students, such as Roy and Mary Jane, had no relatives present. After a brief chat with Gwen's parents, Roy returned to Mary Jane and said to her, "Let's go back." "Uh-huh." Mary Jane nodded immediately. It wasn't long before they arrived at the parking lot. Just as Roy was about to drive Mary Jane home, his cell phone rang. He took out his cell phone and took a look at it, frowning slightly. An unfamiliar phone number was displayed on the phone screen. End of this chapter. Chapter 32 Kidnapping. Chapter 32 Kidnapping. After a few seconds, Roy answered the phone. Before he could say anything, Black Widow's voice came from the other end of the phone. "Your parents were kidnapped by a group of unknown armed men when they were heading to the airport yesterday afternoon." After hearing what Black Widow said, Roy's expression turned cold and he quickly asked, "How did you know?" Since he refused to join S.H.I.E.L.D. last time, he has not met anyone from S.H.I.E.L.D., and S.H.I.E.L.D. has not sent anyone to follow him or cause trouble for him. As for whether S.H.I.E.L.D. was secretly investigating him, he had no way of knowing for sure. However, judging from S.H.I.E.L.D's style, secret investigations are inevitable. We have received intelligence from the London branch. The militants who kidnapped your parents are most likely members of Hydra. As for why they kidnapped your parents, you should be able to guess it without me telling you. If you want to save your parents, come to the New York branch of SHIELD. I'll send you the address later. Black Widow said without any nonsense. She got straight to the point. Roy did not reply to Black Widow and hung up the phone directly. Then, he turned to Mary Jane in the passenger seat and said, "You take a taxi back. I'm going to take care of some personal matters." Although she didn't know what he was going to do, Mary Jane didn't ask any more questions and immediately replied, "Then I'll wait for you at home." After that, Mary Jane unbuckled her seat belt, kissed him on the cheek, opened the door and got out. As soon as Mary Jane closed the car door, Roy received the address from Black Widow. After taking a look at the address, he immediately started the car and drove towards the New York branch of SHIELD. Manhattan. After driving for more than half an hour in the congested urban area, Roy finally arrived at the New York branch of SHIELD. Perhaps for disguise, S.H.I.E.L.'s New York branch was set up in a commercial building in Manhattan. On the surface, the building looks like any other commercial building in Manhattan. But as soon as he entered the parking lot underground in the building, Roy discovered that this place was different from other buildings. There are cameras everywhere in the underground parking lot. In addition, the security guard at the entrance of the parking lot is obviously not an ordinary person. Although their dress is not much different from that of security guards in other buildings, they are obviously much more professional. For example, the calluses on the base of the right hand due to years of shooting practice. After arriving at the parking lot on the underground first floor, Roy quickly saw the beautiful and sexy Black Widow. In addition to Black Widow, he also saw Hawkeye and Agent Hill, as well as Nick Fury, the current director of SHIELD. Black Widow, Hawkeye, and Agent Hill are all wearing everyday casual clothes. As for Mad Max Nick Fury, he was wearing a long black trench coat that was not suitable for the season. After taking a look at them, Roy found a parking space and stopped. Then he got out of the car and walked straight towards them. Soon, he came in front of Nick Fury. Just as Nick Fury was about to say something, Roy clenched his right fist and swung out lightning. Bang! The right fist, like a cannonball, instantly hit Nick Fury's chest and knocked him several meters away. No one except Roy expected him to suddenly attack Nick Fury. Under the watchful eyes of the Black Widow and the other two, Nick Fury flew backwards and crashed heavily into a Chevrolet SUV behind him, shattering the windshield and making a big hole in the hood. Before Black Widow and Agent Hill could draw their pistols, a spider silk shot out from Roy's left hand. The seemingly fragile spider silk stuck firmly to Nick Fury's body. He just pulled with his left hand, and Nick Fury flew in front of him, and he grabbed his neck tightly. "If you can't give me a reasonable explanation, I will break your neck immediately." Roy looked at Nick Fury with a cold expression and lifted Nick Fury up with one hand. On the surface, S.H.I.E.L.D. had nothing to do with the kidnapping of the original's parents. Not only that, Black Widow also took the initiative to call him to inform him, which was quite good. But things are not that simple. Putting aside other things, just looking at the fact that the original body's parents were kidnapped by Hydra when they were going to the airport yesterday afternoon, it can be seen that Hydra had just known that he was the Steel Claw masked man not long ago. After killing Madame Gao and the other two, he never went out again using the Steel Claw mask. In other words, the steel-clawed masked man who offended Hydra has disappeared for 3 months. There is only one explanation for how Hydra could have known in recent times that he is the Steel Claw masked man. That means Hydra learned this information from somewhere else. And S.H.I.E.L.D. is the biggest suspect. Otherwise, there is no way to explain why Hydra kidnapped the original body's parents at this time. From a personal perspective, Roy does not have any deep feelings for his original parents. But he doesn't mind giving something back to his original parents. No matter what, he occupied the body of the original inhabitant and lived with the original inhabitant's identity. After hearing what Roy said, Black Widow immediately put down the pistol she had just raised and quickly said, we did not reveal your identity to Hydra. They are the enemy of SHIELD, and we will not leak any information to them. If it wasn't you who leaked it, then I told them. Roy increased the strength of his left hand, and Nick Fury, who was unable to breathe, began to struggle violently. They found it out themselves. Black Widow continued. Impossible. The Steel Claw masked man has been missing for 3 months. If they were that capable, they would have found him long ago. Roy said coldly. If this is the movie universe, it is possible that Hydra found out on their own. After all, Hydra is hiding inside S.H.I.E.L.D., and they can know whatever S.H.I.E.L.D. knows. But this isn't a cinematic universe. After Black Widow and Hawkeye found him, he did some research and found out that the Minister of the Security Council was not Alexander Pierce. Indeed, they found it themselves. Although you no longer use the identity of the Steel Claw masked man to operate in Hell's Kitchen, your previous actions still left a lot of loopholes. The night you first beat up Philip Salem and Trayvon Salem, their uncle Castor was killed by you with your steel claws in Hell's Kitchen. Also, you always took a taxi to Hell's Kitchen before, and you happened to be at Coney Island Beach when the Lizard Man was killed. We can identify you from these clues, and so can they. As for why they only found out about you now, it's probably because their intelligence network is not as complete as ours. Black Widow said quickly. After hearing Black Widow's explanation, Roy frowned slightly. Although Black Widow has no evidence to prove that Hydra found him through these clues, it is indeed possible. After thinking for a while, he threw the suffocating Nick Fury in front of the Black Widow and the other two as if he was throwing away garbage. End of this chapter. Chapter 33 The Threat of the Nine-Headed Snake. Chapter 33 The Hydra Threat. Bang! Nick Fury, with several broken ribs, fell in front of Black Widow and the other two with a bang, and a painful expression immediately appeared on his face. It's best if they find out for themselves. If I knew that it was you who leaked the information to Hydra, no matter how much harm my parents suffered, I would send you to hell with my own hands. After saying that, Roy ignored Black Widow and the others, turned back to the car, and drove out of the parking lot. Hawkeye and Agent Hill helped Nick Fury up from the ground. I'm fine, I can't die. Nick Fury said immediately. He really can't die now. However, his situation was not good. Now he even had difficulty breathing, and the severe pain in his chest made cold sweat break out on his forehead. Enduring the pain in his chest, Nick Fury removed the spider silk stuck to his body under the gaze of the Black Widow and the other two, and said to them. Have the lab analyze this stuff to see if it's the same spider silk that Peter Parker and Gwen Stacy used. If so, then he most likely has the same superpowers as Peter Parker and Gwen Stacy. Although the general public in New York does not know that Peter and Gwen are Spider-Man and Spider-Woman. But not long after they started fighting crime, SHIELD discovered the true identities of Spider-Man and Spider-Woman. Compared to the previous investigation of Roy, investigating the true identities of Spider-Man and Spider-Woman is much easier. Peter and Gwen perform heroic activities every day, so it's not too difficult to check. At least it's not that difficult for S.H.I.E.L.D. As soon as Nick Fury finished speaking, Agent Hill took the spider silk from his hand and immediately replied, "Okay, I'll let the people in the lab analyze it right away." After driving out of the underground parking lot of S.H.I.E.L.D's New York branch, Roy drove directly to his residence. Although he did not expect Hydra to kidnap his original body's parents at this time, he had already thought about how to deal with it. If Hydra just wanted to take revenge on him, there was no need to kidnap the original body's parents, they could just kill them directly. But Hydra did not do so, and instead kidnapped the original body's parents. This means that Hydra intends to use his original parents as bargaining chips to threaten him. Therefore, before he and Hydra completely fell out, Hydra would not kill his original parents. Just as he was about to return to the upscale neighborhood where he lived, his cell phone rang again. Just like the call from Black Widow, a completely unfamiliar number was displayed on the phone screen. Although he had never seen this number before, when Roy saw the first 4 digits of the number were 4, he knew it was a call from the UK. 0044 is the international dialing code for the United Kingdom. Pulling the car to the side of the road, Roy answered the call on speakerphone. As soon as the call was connected, an unfamiliar middle-aged male voice came from the other end. "Roy Chen, your parents are visiting us now." Before the other party could finish speaking, Roy said, "Don't be so mysterious. I know you are Hydra. Tell me, what do you want to do?" The middle-aged man on the other end of the phone fell silent. After a few seconds, he continued, "Now that you know who we are, I won't waste my words with you. As long as you help us do a few things, we will let your parents return home safely. Otherwise..." Roy didn't wait for the other party to finish his threat and said directly, "Release my parents immediately, and I can pretend that this incident never happened." As soon as he finished speaking, a disdainful laugh came from the other side. "It seems that you haven't figured out the current situation. In that case, let me show you. Don't waste your energy. No matter how you threaten me, I will not be your pawn. If you want to kill them, then just do it. If they die, I will avenge them with my own hands." After saying that, Roy hung up the phone without waiting for the other party to answer. After knowing that his original parents were kidnapped by Hydra, he was mentally prepared that his original parents would not be able to come back alive. He didn't mind repaying his original parents to a certain extent, but he would not become someone else's pawn because of his original parents. Although this would make him look cold-blooded, there was nothing he could do about it. If he agreed to Hydra's request, Hydra would be even less likely to release his original body's parents. A few minutes after hanging up the phone, Roy received a text message. There was no text in the message, only a dark web URL. When he clicked on the dark web URL, Roy saw his original parents tied tightly to a chair, with rags stuffed in their mouths and terrified expressions on their faces. After a few seconds, a Hydra soldier came to the original father, took out a pistol, and put it against the back of the original father's head. Boom! The Hydra soldier pulled the trigger and killed the original father in an execution-style shooting. After seeing her husband being killed, the original mother who was tied to a chair immediately struggled violently. Hydra! Roy unconsciously clenched his fists, suppressing the anger in his heart. After killing the original body's father, the Hydra soldier came behind the original body's mother and put a pistol to her head. At the same time, the middle-aged male voice sounded again. "I'll ask you one last time, do you want to help us?" Roy ignored the other party and stared at his original mother. After more than 10 seconds, he said to his original mother, "I swear, I will definitely help you get revenge, even if I have to make the whole world my enemy, I will definitely help you get revenge. Sorry." After hearing his words, the original mother, whose face was full of sadness and pain, first showed an expression of surprise. Then, he looked at the camera with a gentle face, as if he had seen Roy in New York with his own eyes, nodded with satisfaction, and closed his eyes calmly. Boom! Gunshots rang out again, and the Hydra soldiers executed the original body's mother in the same way. You would rather have your parents killed than accept threats from your enemies. Do you have? Before the other party could finish his words, Roy crushed the phone. If you cut off one head, 2 will grow back, right? It is good. Very good. If I don't kill you, I will take your surname. After throwing the remains of the cell phone out of the window, Roy took a few deep breaths, calmed himself down, and drove towards his residence. An office in the New York branch of SHIELD. Nick Fury, who had received preliminary treatment for his injuries, sat in a wheelchair and watched the video just sent by the intelligence department with Black Widow and the other 2. The video they were watching was none other than the video of their original parents being executed by Hydra. Not long after Roy left the parking lot, intelligence agents hacked into his cell phone, eavesdropped on his conversation with Hydra, and intercepted the dark web URL. Although the dark web URL soon became invalid, the intelligence agents still completed the live broadcast recording as soon as possible and reported the situation to Nick Fury. After listening to the conversation between Roy and Hydra and watching the video of the execution of his original parents, Nick Fury, who was sitting in a wheelchair, said, "Tell me what you think. Now is a good time to recruit him. If he wants to avenge his parents, he needs someone to provide him with accurate Hydra intelligence. And we just happen to meet this condition." Agent Hill spoke first. "I don't agree with Hill's opinion. I don't think it's a good time to recruit him. He doesn't trust us in the first place. If we take the initiative to recruit him now, he will only think that we are taking advantage of him, and he will never dislike us more," Black Widow said with a frown. After hearing what Black Widow said, Hawkeye said slowly, "If we hadn't provided him with intelligence, it would have been impossible for him to find Hydra on his own. Unless he doesn't want revenge, otherwise, cooperating with us is his best choice. However, we don't need to take the initiative to recruit him. When he finds out that he has no way to find Hydra, he should take the initiative to come to us." End of this chapter. Chapter 34 Roy, stop it. Chapter 34 Roy, stop it. More than 9 o'clock in the evening. Roy, who hadn't been to Hell's Kitchen for 3 months, came to Hell's Kitchen again. At this moment, he was standing on the rooftop of a building in Hell's Kitchen, wearing a white mask with red patterns on his face, looking down at a nearby factory. Although his original parents were killed, he did not tell Mary Jane or Gwen about it. There's no use letting them know. He didn't need their comfort. Although he felt somewhat sorry for his original parents, he did not feel strong sadness. To be precise, not long after he crushed the phone, his mood had calmed down. After standing on the edge of the roof of the building and looking at the nearby factories, he jumped down from the roof of the building. Under the influence of gravity, he fell towards the ground at a high speed. Call out! After falling for dozens of meters, he shot out a spider silk from his right hand, letting it stick to the outer wall of the building opposite. Using the spider silk shot by the spider web launcher, he quickly arrived at the factory gate. The moment he landed, he released his adamantium bone claws. From the outside, this looks like an ordinary meat processing plant. But in reality, this is the headquarters of the Magic Gang. Before he returned to his residence, he had already figured out how to find the Hydra. The solution he came up with was very simple. Just ask the major gangs in New York. He didn't know how the Hand was connected to Hydra. But if the Hand can contact Hydra, then other large gangs in New York should be able to do so as well. Although he had no evidence to prove this, he trusted his own judgment. As soon as Roy arrived at the factory gate, he attracted the attention of the gate's security guard. This is the headquarters of the Magic Gang, and the security guard in charge of guarding the factory gate is certainly not an ordinary person. After seeing him, the gangsters who appeared to be security guards but were actually members of the Magic Gang immediately showed expressions of surprise and shock. A white mask with a red stripe. Beast-like steel claws. Before the gangsters could draw their guns, Roy shot at them. The 2 or 3 meter high metal fence gate was completely unable to stop him from moving forward. With just a light leap, he jumped over the gate, and like a bird of prey, he dropped from the sky and pounced on a gangster. The sharp adamantium bone claws pierced through the opponent's body easily like piercing through window paper. He. The adamantium bone claws kept swinging out. The gangsters at the gate only lasted 2 or 3 seconds before they went to hell hand in hand to report to Mephisto. After killing them, Roy walked slowly into the factory. Bang 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 bang. Da-da-da-da-da. Boom 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 boom. Not long after, the originally quiet factory was filled with fierce gunfire and explosions. As one of the well-known gangs in New York, the Magic Gang is not weak in strength. In addition to having a large number of gang members, they also have a large number of weapons. In addition to the common pistols, rifles, and grenades, they even have heavy firepower such as heavy machine guns and rocket launchers. Even so, they still failed to stop Roy's unilateral massacre. Facing Roy, who possessed many superpowers, they couldn't even stop him, let alone defeat him. Without much effort, Roy fought his way through a path paved with blood and corpses that led directly from the factory gate to the factory office. After killing the thugs at the office door, he entered the office covered in blood and saw Joseph Harrow, one of the biggest gang leaders in New York, known as Hammerhead. Although he was one of the biggest gang leaders in New York, Joseph Harrow was not an American, but a Russian who immigrated to the United States. In a gang fight, he suffered a severe head injury and was replaced with an iron skull by a doctor. After surviving the disaster, he lost his previous memories and began to call himself Hammerhead. Because his iron skull gave him a head that was much harder than that of an ordinary person, rumors began to spread that he was an undead monster whose head could not be blown up even by bullets. Seeing Roy, covered in blood, rushing towards him like the god of death, Joseph Harrow, who was wearing a white shirt and black suspender trousers, did not hesitate at all. He immediately raised his rifle and pulled the trigger frantically at Roy. Da-da-da-da-da. The bullets shot towards Roy at high speed as if they were free. Roy didn't care about Joseph's shooting, nor did he dodge. He walked towards Joseph as if he was taking a walk after dinner. Although Joseph rarely practiced shooting, he was only a few meters away from Roy at this time. At this distance, as long as you are not blind, you can basically hit the target. However, the bullet that hit Roy did not cause him any harm. Blurred. Before Joseph fired, Roy used his virtualization superpower. The bullets fired at him passed through his body as if through air. Joseph didn't know that Roy had the superpower of virtuality. After seeing this scene, words such as ghost and spirit immediately popped up in his mind. Click. The sound of the empty magazine was heard. Before Joseph could change the magazine, Roy came in front of him and swung out his adamantium bone claws. Laugh. The sharp adamantium bone claw directly cut off Joseph's right arm. Where is Hydra? Roy said to Joseph in a cold tone. I don't know that they. Laugh. The adamantium claws once again slashed across Joseph's body, cutting off his left arm. I won't tell you the same thing twice. Roy continued. I don't really know where they are, I just got calls from them. Joseph spoke quickly, enduring the severe pain of his arms being chopped off. Just answering the call from Hydra? Roy frowned slightly. What's the number? I don't remember, I saved the number in my phone's address book. Where's the phone? The right trouser pocket. Joseph said quickly, looking down at the right pocket of his pants. Roy said nothing more and took out the cell phone from Joseph's pocket. He opened the address book and took a look. After confirming that there was indeed a mobile phone number with the note Hydra, he threw the phone into the system space. Then, he waved his right hand casually. Laugh. The adamantium bone claws easily cut through Joseph's head as if they were cutting through a cream cake. Joseph, who was rumored to be an immortal monster and whose head could not be blown off even by bullets, had his skull easily opened by Roy. After killing Joseph, Roy left the office without looking back and started heading towards his second destination for the night. However, as soon as he left the factory building, he saw two familiar figures. Black Widow, and Hawkeye. To be precise, it is Black Widow, who is wearing a black tight combat suit that perfectly shows off her graceful curves, and Hawkeye, who is also wearing a combat suit, carrying a high-tech quiver and holding a recurve bow. Before Roy could speak, Black Widow's voice rang out. Roy, stop it! End of this chapter. Chapter 35 Are you teaching me how to do something? Chapter 35 Are you teaching me how to do something? After learning that the original body's parents were killed by Hydra, Nick Fury immediately sent people to closely monitor Roy's every move. Although Nick Fury and the others did not guess that Roy would come to Hell's Kitchen tonight, not long after he attacked the Magic Gang headquarters, Nick Fury asked Black Widow and Hawkeye to bring people over. Not only that, S.H.I.E.L.D. also prevented the New York Police Department from intervening. However, even if there was no obstruction from S.H.I.E.L.D., the New York Police Department would not send people over so quickly. If possible, the New York Police Department would like the gangs in Hell's Kitchen to kill each other and leave no one alive. Apart from anything else, without these gangs, the public security in New York will be much better. Roy, wearing a red striped mask, looked at Black Widow and Hawkeye. Then, he said to Black Widow, "Are you teaching me how to do things?" "No, that's not what I meant. What I mean is, you don't have to vent your anger on these gangsters. If you want to find Hydra, we can help you." Black Widow replied without any hesitation. Roy was not surprised that S.H.I.E.L.D. knew that his original body's parents were killed by Hydra. With S.H.I.E.L.D's capabilities, it would be a simple matter to hack into and eavesdrop on his phone. Although the mobile phone he used before had some anti-eavesdropping and anti-positioning settings, it was impossible to completely prevent S.H.I.E.L.D's intrusion and eavesdropping. No matter what, S.H.I.E.L.D. is a professional intelligence agency. "Help me. Are you too self-righteous? What makes you think I need your help? Don't blame me for not reminding you. I don't like others to tell me what to do, and I don't like others to stop me from doing things. If there is any blind guy who insists on stopping me from doing my job, I will let him know what the consequences of meddling in other people's business will be." After saying that, Roy turned his gaze away from Black Widow and shot Spider Silk towards a building to the right of the factory building. When the Spider Silk was firmly stuck to the outer wall, he pulled hard with his right hand and the whole person flew into the air. In a few seconds, he disappeared from the sight of Black Widow and Hawkeye. "Do you want to continue following or stay and deal with the mess here?" Hawkeye, who had been silent all this time, spoke to Black Widow. After thinking for a few seconds, Black Widow replied, "Leave some people to deal with things here, and the others continue to follow." Although she didn't know where Roy was going next, Black Widow's female intuition told her that Roy would not give up so easily tonight. After hearing Black Widow's answer, Hawkeye first glanced around the factory full of corpses before continuing, "Okay, let's do as you say." After saying that, Hawkeye took the lead and walked towards the S.H.I.E.L.D. agents waiting outside the factory gate. In order to avoid unnecessary misunderstandings, Black Widow and Hawkeye did not let the accompanying S.H.I.E.L.D. agents enter the factory, but asked them to wait outside the factory. After instructing some S.H.I.E.L.D. agents to stay and clean up the aftermath, Black Widow and Hawkeye took the other S.H.I.E.L.D. agents away. Roy didn't care whether Black Widow and Hawkeye would continue to bring people to follow. As long as they didn't come to stop him, he didn't bother to pay attention to them. Not long after, Roy left Hell's Kitchen and came to Chinatown, 7 or 8 kilometers away from Hell's Kitchen. On the rooftop of a building near Chinatown, Roy stood on the edge of the roof and looked down at Chinatown. The Magic Gang, led by Joseph Hammerhead Harrow, was his first target tonight. As for the second target, it is the Magic Gang's mortal enemy, the Devil Gang led by Mr. Negative Martin Lee. In the eyes of the general public, Martin Lee is a philanthropist who built the homeless shelter Feast. In the eyes of gangsters, he was a self-made man who went from being a stowaway with nothing to becoming a gangster legend who became one of the biggest gang leaders in New York. But Roy knew that Mr. Negative was not the real Martin Lee. Speaking of this, we have to talk about the real Martin Lee. The real Martin Lee was the owner of a zipper factory in the flower growers family. He and his wife Yana lived a life that was not rich but not bad either. When they were selling zippers to America, they encountered difficulties from American officials. At first, they planned to bribe these officials, but these officials were not easy to bribe. At this time, they heard from other people that their neighbors had immigrated to America and lived a luxurious life. So they came up with the idea of immigrating to America. After accumulating enough savings, Martin Lee first let his wife Yana go to the United States with a study visa. After arriving in America, Yana found that life in America was not as good as she had imagined. Chaotic public security, noisy streets, gang members everywhere, etc. Yana told Martin Lee the true appearance of America, and told him that it was not worth giving up everything to immigrate to America, and asked him not to come. Although Yana was telling the truth, Martin Lee thought Yana had cheated in America. So he immediately contacted the human traffickers who smuggled people into the United States. During the 13 days that the smuggling ship Jinshin was sailing, he witnessed many smugglers like himself dying in the dark and narrow cabins. Some of these dead illegal immigrants died due to severe lack of water, while others died at the hands of human traffickers. Just as the Gold Mountain was about to arrive in America, it ran aground and seawater rushed into the cabin frantically. Martin Lee and others who were hiding in the cabin hurriedly broke open the cabin door and escaped from the flooded cabin. After discovering that all the crew members on the ship were missing, they jumped into the sea to escape. The next morning, 212 bodies washed up on Rockaway Beach. Martin Lee was the only survivor. After escaping death and sneaking into the United States, he found a job in a clothing store in Manhattan's Chinatown and became an illegal worker who went unpaid most of the time. The above are the stories told by Martin Lee, disguised as Mr. Negative, when he received the Medal of Freedom from the President of the United States. After receiving the Medal of Freedom from the President of the United States, he went from being a stowaway to a formal citizen of the United States and began to build his own business. After his career became successful, he bought the clothing store that once exploited him and transformed it into a homeless shelter called Feast. In the comics, Peter Parker's Aunt May Parker is one of the volunteers at this shelter. Judging from the surface, Martin Lee's story is indeed inspiring and in line with the so-called American dream. But in reality, these are all fake. Mr. Negative not only used Martin Lee's name, but also completely fabricated his experiences after landing. There was indeed a stowaway named Martin Lee on the Jinshin, but like other stowaways, he died in the ICC. Today, Mr. Negative is an unnamed snakehead on the Jinshin. The reason why the Jinshin ran aground was not an accident, but because the human traffickers responsible for picking them up on the shore did not give any response. Fearing arrest by the police, he forced the captain to dock, causing the ship to run aground and water to fill the cabin. In order to survive, the crew members and stowaways jumped into the sea to escape. Mr. Film, who managed to return to the shore, found that all the human traffickers who had been waiting for them were dead. Terrified, he tried to return to his headquarters in Chinatown. As a result, before he could return to the Chinatown headquarters, he was knocked unconscious by the Magic Gang and taken to an underground cell, becoming a guinea pig for Dr. Simon Marshall's drug experiments. After several days of inhumane experiments, he and 2 other inmates escaped from the cell. Although his life during those days was no different from hell, he turned it into a blessing in disguise and gained extraordinary abilities that he had never had before. Roy isn't sure if Mr. Negative gained his superpowers the same way as in the comics. But there was one thing he was sure of, that was that there was definitely no superhero Cloak and Dagger among Mr. Negative's cellmates. In the comics, Mr. Negative escaped from prison with Cloak and Dagger. But in this universe, there is no way he will ever meet Cloak and Dagger. As for the reason, it's simple, because Cloak and Dagger are both mutants, and this is a universe without mutants. Recalling Mr. Film's superpowers in his mind, Roy did not waste any more time. He jumped down from the roof of the building and headed towards a restaurant called Happy Peacock in Chinatown. The Happy Peacock restaurant is not the headquarters of the Devil Gang, but one of Mr. Film's legal businesses. End of this chapter. Chapter 36 Distorted Personality. Chapter 36 Distorted Personality. Happy Peacock Restaurant. Top floor office. Mr. Negative, dressed in a suit and tie, with black hair and black eyes, looks like a business elite. He sits in the boss chair behind his desk, browsing the account book in front of him. Whether it's his dress, appearance, or demeanor, he seems to have nothing to do with gangs. He is just a mature, law-abiding, and friendly middle-aged man. But only those who truly understand him know that this is just his disguise. Once he is angered, he will show a more terrifying posture than Joseph Hammerhead Harrow and others. If Joseph Hammerhead was just an undead monster that was rumored, then he was undoubtedly a superhuman. Not only that, his superpowers are tricky. Like most superhumans, Mr. Negative has physical functions far beyond those of ordinary people. Their strength, endurance, reaction, etc. are much stronger than those of ordinary people. However, this is not what is really tricky about him. Negative energy. In addition to his physical functions far exceeding those of ordinary people, he also possesses the superpower of releasing negative energy. Negative energy is a special type of energy that causes the target to have strong negative emotions and distorts the target's personality. No matter they are close relatives, loving couples, or friends who trust each other, they will kill each other under the influence of negative energy. In the comics, Spider-Man has often been restrained by Mr. Negative's negative energy. Because once Spider-Man touches Mr. Negative or is hit by the negative energy released by Mr. Negative, his personality will be completely changed from the righteous Spider-Man to the evil Spider-Man. In addition to using negative energy to catalyze the target's negative emotions and distorted personality, Mr. Negative can also release negative energy in the form of shock waves or energy waves. When necessary, he can also condense negative energy into physical weapons such as knives, swords, and spears to attack the enemy. Compared with Hammerhead Joseph, Mr. Film is much stronger. If he hadn't been afraid of Kingpin, he would have killed Hammerhead Joseph and the Magic Gang long ago. As the boss of the Devil Gang, Mr. Negative has two goals. One is to completely eradicate the Magic Gang. Another is to become the Kingpin of Chinatown. As for replacing Kingpin and becoming the biggest underworld emperor in New York and even the United States, he had fantasized about doing so, but he didn't think he could do it right now. Although he has the superpower of negative energy, Kingpin is no pushover. Killing and replacing Jinbing is not something he can do for the time being. Just as Mr. Film was carefully checking the numbers in the account book, he suddenly heard a faint sound coming from the top of the building. Although the voice was very weak, he, who used to be a member of the Snakehead and is now a gang leader, immediately became fully alert and quietly mobilized the negative energy. He did not immediately transform into a black and white figure, like a person in a photo negative, but instead looked up at the ceiling of the office. Under his gaze, Roy, wearing a red striped mask, passed through the ceiling like a ghost and landed in the office. After seeing Roy, he did not hesitate at all, and negative energy immediately enveloped his whole body, turning him from a friendly-looking middle-aged man into an extraordinary Mr. Film. Before Mr. Negative could speak, Roy's voice rang out. "Where is Hydra?" "Hydra?" After hearing what Roy said, Mr. Negative immediately frowned. He thought Roy was here to assassinate him. Unexpectedly, Roy came to inquire about the whereabouts of Hydra. Like Hammerhead Joseph, he had also received a call from Hydra before, asking the Demon Gang to find the whereabouts of Professor Lizard. Not only that, because he possesses negative energy, he also has some other cooperation with Hydra. For example, using negative energy to help Hydra distort the personalities of certain targets. Although the distorted personality will gradually recover as the negative energy is consumed. But even if he can't permanently warp a target's personality, his powers are still useful to Hydra. It's not like Hydra hadn't tried to capture him. But after discovering that the cost of capturing him would be much greater than asking him for help, Hydra gave up the idea of capturing him. Like S.H.I.E.L.D., Hydra also lacks truly advanced combat capabilities. Although Mr. Negative is not a high-level combat force, he is still not someone that Hydra can easily deal with. During a past capture, he used negative energy to distort the personalities of some Hydra soldiers. This not only led to the failure of the capture mission, but also almost caused the soldier with a distorted personality to actively leak internal intelligence to S.H.I.E.L.D. If Hydra had not stopped those soldiers with distorted personalities in time, Hydra's secret base in New York would have been wiped out by S.H.I.E.L.D. long ago. I don't know where they are. Mr. Negative replied in a cold tone. Call out. As soon as he finished speaking, Roy fired 2 thumb-thick impact beams at him. Just as the impact beam emitting ruby light was about to hit Mr. Film released negative energy in black and white. In just a blink of an eye, the negative energy condensed into a shield, blocking Mr. Film. Boom! The red impact beam hit the shield formed by the negative energy hard and exploded suddenly. The huge explosion sounded throughout the restaurant. The shock wave that did not distinguish between friend and foe not only destroyed the desk in front of Mr. Film, but also blew away various things on the desk. The broken desk fell to the ground, and the flying documents were flying everywhere. The originally tidy and clean office suddenly became a mess. After seeing Mr. Negative use a shield formed by negative energy to block the impact beam, Roy said nothing and started a new attack. Impact beam. Just like before, he used Cyclops' superpowers to attack Mr. Negative with a laser-like shock beam. But this time, the impact beam he fired was obviously much thicker. The impact beam he just fired was only as thick as a thumb. And now, he fired a shock beam the size of a man's arm. Although the 2 impact beams were emitted from both eyes, due to his body size, the 2 impact beams merged into one and flew towards Mr. Film at a high speed. Mr. Film responded quickly. After seeing that the impact beam released by Roy was much thicker than before, he did not continue to release negative energy to resist the impact beam. Instead, he jumped to the right and came to the window of the office. Roy saw his dodge, turned his neck slightly, and immediately changed the attack direction of the impact beam. The thick impact beam first easily penetrated the bookshelf and the wall behind it, and then chopped towards Mr. Film like a huge lightsaber. Although this is a restaurant, Roy is not worried that the impact beam he fired would accidentally injure innocent people. The restaurant closed early in the morning. The only people still inside the restaurant now, apart from Mr. Film who was reviewing the account books, were the members of the Devil Gang. End of this chapter. Chapter 37. Even Jesus could not detain him. Chapter 37. Even Jesus could not detain him. After seeing Roy turn his head, Mr. Film, who was standing in front of the window, did not hesitate at all. He decisively broke the window glass and jumped out of the window. Although the office is located on the 5th floor of the Happy Peacock restaurant, nearly 20 meters above the ground, Mr. Film would rather jump out of the office than be hit by the thick impact beam. With his physique, jumping from this height would not kill him. But if you get hit by the shock beam, it's hard to say. Mr. Film moves very quickly. However, he still failed to avoid the incoming impact beam. As soon as he jumped out of the window, the impact beam slashed at him like a giant lightsaber. Boom! Without any suspense, Mr. Film, who was hit by the impact beam, flew backwards like a baseball hit by a bat. When the shock beam hit Mr. Film, Roy stopped releasing the shock beam. Whether it is defeating Mr. Film or killing Mr. Film, it is not a difficult task for him. But his goal tonight was not just to defeat or kill Mr. Negative. He would not easily kill Mr. Negative before digging out the information he wanted from him. If you want to die, you can do it after you reveal the information about Hydra. Although Roy stopped releasing the impact beam, Mr. Film still felt unprecedented severe pain. Cyclops blast beams do not have the incredibly high temperatures of Superman's heat rays. But being hit by an impact beam, especially one with a diameter of more than 10 or 20 centimeters, is still an extremely painful thing. If Mr. Film had not been protected by negative energy and his physique was not far superior to that of ordinary people, he would have gone to hell to report to Mephisto the moment he was hit by the shock beam. Under Roy's gaze, Mr. Film, who was hit by the impact beam, flew backwards uncontrollably for 50 or 60 meters and fell onto the roof of a residential building like a meteor falling from the sky. When Mr. Negative landed, he came to the huge hole in the office. He did not shoot spider silk to leave the office that had been partially cut off by the impact beam, but slowly took out a deck of cards from the system space. In just a moment, he finished charging the playing cards and threw them out. The thrown playing cards did not fall under the influence of gravity, but instead arranged themselves with each other to form a cloud formed by playing cards. The poker card cloud shining with purple light came to his feet. Roy stepped onto the playing card cloud and flew towards Mr. Film. This was a means of flying he developed before obtaining the angel card. Ordinary playing cards certainly can't bear his weight. But after being injected with energy, the originally fragile playing cards will be significantly strengthened. After developing this method, he gave it a very appropriate name: Poker Cloud. The flying speed of the poker cloud is not particularly fast, only about 30 to 40 km per hour. Not long after, Roy, riding on the poker cloud, came in front of Mr. Film and looked down at him condescendingly. Although Mr. Film is still in black and white, but compared to before, he is now in an extremely miserable state. The handsome suit became as tattered as a beggar's clothes, and severe pain spread all over his body. Black blood kept flowing out of the wounds. Apart from not having any missing limbs, his current condition is extremely bad. You still have a chance to say the last word, Roy said in a cold tone. After deciding to make Mr. Negative the second target for tonight, he began to think about how to deal with Mr. Negative, who possessed negative energy. From the effects point of view, negative energy that can cause people to have strong negative emotions and distort their personality is indeed very troublesome. But negative energy also has weaknesses. Touch. Once it comes into contact with the target, negative energy can distort the target's personality or cause the target to have strong negative emotions. As long as you are not exposed to negative energy, the threat of negative energy will drop sharply. It is also because of this that Roy did not use the adamantium bone claws to deal with Mr. Negative like he did with Hammerhead Joseph. Mr. Negative looked at him without saying a word, his brain working frantically, thinking of ways to escape. After waiting for 2 or 3 seconds without getting a response from Mr. Negative, Roy didn't bother to be polite with him, and his eyes once again released a shock beam. Call out! 2 finger-thick impact beams hit Mr. Film's shoulders like bullets. As before, Mr. Negative tried to use negative energy to resist the impact beam attack. But unfortunately, this time he failed to block the impact beam in time. Perhaps because of the injury, or perhaps because a lot of his negative energy had been consumed, his speed in mobilizing negative energy was significantly slower. However, even if he could mobilize negative energy like before, Roy had plenty of ways to deal with him. Whether it is tilted shooting or curved trajectory, the impact beam can attack Mr. Film from unexpected angles. Without the obstruction of negative energy, the impact beam easily penetrated Mr. Film's right shoulder, and black blood immediately flowed out of the wound. Without waiting for Mr. Film to speak, Roy fired the impact beam again. Boo-hoo-hoo-hoo-hoo. Impact beams as thick as fingers kept flying out from Roy's eyes, attacking Mr. Film like bullets. Left shoulder, right leg, right hand, lower abdomen. In order to make Mr. Film suffer longer, Roy deliberately avoided Mr. Film's vital points. Just kill me. Under Roy's gaze, Mr. Negative suddenly released his negative state and returned to his normal human appearance. What benefits did Hydra give you that made you prefer to be killed rather than reveal their intelligence? Roy said to Mr. Negative. Benefit? They didn't do me any favors. I just wanted to die with dignity. If I'm not mistaken, you won't let me go whether I say it or not. If that's the case, then why should I fulfill your wish? Mr. Film forced himself to sit up and said calmly. You guessed right. Whether you tell me or not, I won't let you go. But if you say so, I can make your death easier. Roy replied. Let me die easily. You've already beaten me like this, it's not going to be easy anymore. Stop talking nonsense. If you want to kill me, then kill me. I admit that I am inferior to you in strength. After saying that, Mr. Film didn't say anything else. He just lay down, looking like he was ready to be killed or cut into pieces as the Emperor wished. "You're playing dumb with me, right? Ro. Then I'll have some fun with you. I want to see if you are really that brave." Just as Roy was about to release the shock beam, from bottom to top, to evaporate Mr. Film bit by bit, a figure fell from the sky and landed on the roof. "Stop!" The figure that fell from the sky was none other than Peter, wearing the red and blue Spider-Man uniform. Peter didn't know that Roy would come to Manhattan tonight to cause trouble for Hammerhead Joseph, Mr. Negative, and others. But he happened to be in the neighborhood near Chinatown. Roy glanced at Peter and said quickly, "Mind your own business. Go somewhere else if you want to play superhero games." As soon as he finished speaking, Peter's voice rang out. "I will never let you kill him. Even if he is a criminal, he should be tried by law." Although he has been fighting criminals as Spider-Man for several months, Peter has not changed much and is still as old-fashioned and naive as before. "I'm going to have him tonight. Even Jesus can't stop him. I say so." End of this chapter. Chapter 38 Rising Tide. Chapter 38 Rising Tide. As soon as Roy finished speaking, the poker cloud under his feet dispersed. 26 playing cards attacked Peter at the first moment, while the remaining 26 cards kept flying around him. Playing cards fly very fast. But it still failed to hit Peter, who had spider sense. However, Roy didn't expect these cards to hit Peter. He also has a spider sense and knows that poker's attack will have a hard time hitting Peter. Just as he guessed, Peter dodged the attack of the playing cards while shooting spider silk at him, trying to stop him. But unfortunately, none of the spider silks shot by Peter could hit him. The playing cards flying around him blocked the spider silk shot by Peter one by one. Under Peter's gaze, Roy's eyes continued to shoot out impact beams. He controlled the power of the impact beam very well, preventing the impact beam from generating a strong impact force that would knock Mr. Film away or break the roof. Although he was multitasking, the impact beam he fired still accurately hit Mr. Film's right leg, burning Mr. Film like a laser. Cyclops blast beams do not have the incredibly high temperatures of Superman's heat rays. But this did not affect him at all from burning Mr. Film with the impact beam. In any case, impact beams are energy beams. What? When his right leg was hit by the impact beam, Mr. Film immediately turned into black and white film. But even so, he still felt the severe pain in his right leg, let out a miserable howl, and struggled and rolled uncontrollably. However, no matter how he struggled and rolled, the impact beam still locked him firmly. Hearing Mr. Film's screams, Peter changed his tactics of shooting spider silk from a distance and shot towards Roy. Before he could get close to Roy, he was hit by the attacking poker card. Although only one poker card hit him, the energy released by the poker card still knocked him away. I said everything." After most of his right leg was evaporated by the impact beam, Mr. Film finally couldn't bear it anymore and shouted loudly. Roy stopped releasing the impact beam and said slowly, "It seems that your mouth is not that hard. Tell me, where is the Hydra?" Mr. Film gave 3 addresses without any hesitation. After saying that, he immediately began to explain. "I have only been to these 3 places to help them distort other people's personalities. I don't know if these 3 places have been abandoned, and I don't know if they have other secret bases. That's all I know. Stop torturing me and give me a quick death. Please." Mr. Negative looked at Roy pleadingly and spoke quickly. Roy didn't say anything, but his eyes once again fired out impact beams. Bang! Mr. Film's head suddenly exploded like a watermelon falling from a high altitude. After being shot in the head by Roy, Mr. Negative also recovered from the inhuman state of black and white film into a normal headless corpse. Roy took out his cell phone from the system space, checked the 3 addresses mentioned by Mr. Film on the map, and planned a route. Then, he turned to Peter and said, "If you want to save people, it depends on whether you have enough strength. I won't bother with you today, but if there's a next time, don't blame me for being rude to you. You are not a child anymore. Think about the consequences before you act. Otherwise, your uncle and aunt will be killed because of you sooner or later." After saying that, Roy controlled the remaining playing cards to fly into the sky. Boom 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 boom. The playing cards flew towards the sky at a high speed and exploded like fireworks. As Peter watched, Roy shot Spider Silk at a nearby building and headed towards the location Mr. Negative mentioned. Peter stood there without saying a word, watching him leave. When Roy completely disappeared from sight, he turned his head to look at Mr. Film's body before leaving the rooftop. It was not until Roy and Peter left that Black Widow and others finally arrived. Before they could go upstairs to check the situation, sirens were heard from the street in the distance. Although the security environment in Chinatown is not particularly good, it is obviously much better than that in Hell's Kitchen, and there are many more police cars patrolling the nearby blocks. It was around 2 in the morning. After being busy outside for several hours, Roy returned to his residence. Mary Jane, who had been waiting for him to come back in the living room, couldn't help but widen her eyes when she saw him covered in blood. "Where have you been? Are you okay?" Mary Jane, who was wearing a nightgown, quickly came to Roy and asked anxiously. Roy only told her that he was going out to do something tonight, but did not tell her what he was going to do. "I'm fine, this is not my blood. If anything happens, let's talk about it tomorrow." After saying that, Roy walked straight towards the bedroom. In the bathroom toilet, Roy lay in the bathtub, relaxing his mind and body, and thinking about his next arrangements. Just as he guessed, the 3 addresses provided by Mr. Film were deserted early in the morning. Although he failed to find the Hydra members, he still gained some things tonight. After going to the address provided by Mr. Negative, he went to visit Cornell Cotton Stokes and Lonnie Tombstone Thompson Lincoln, who were also gang leaders. Like Hammerhead Joseph, they had also received calls from Hydra asking them to help find Professor Lizard. After staying in the bathroom for more than half an hour and washing all the blood off his body, Roy left the bathroom wrapped in a bath towel. Sitting down on the bed, he took out a brand new tablet computer that he had never used before from the system space. Soon, he was logged into the dark web forum of the New York underworld. Without much effort, he found a hacker group in the dark web forum. Rising Tide Organization. After entering the private chat room left by the Rising Tide Organization, he immediately typed out his purpose. New York. In an ordinary apartment in Brooklyn, 5 or 6 men and women gathered in the living room, operating their computers. "Big business is coming." A man in his 20s with messy brown hair spoke loudly. "How big of a business?" As soon as he finished speaking, his companion next to him asked. "Find the users behind these 3 mobile phone numbers. Each number will earn you $1 million. If you can find it within a week, I'll give you an extra $2 million. The brown-haired man said quickly. $5 million? After hearing the brown-haired man's words, everyone else in the living room showed surprised expressions. "They are not here to tease us, let's ask them to transfer a deposit of $1 million first to see their sincerity." The blonde man sitting next to the brown-haired man said quickly. "It is good." The brown-haired man replied immediately. Not long after he sent the account number, he received a message on his mobile phone that $1 million had been deposited into his account. Amount. It's actually true. After seeing the deposit information sent by the bank, the expressions of the brown-haired man and others became a little strange. While they were all highly skilled hackers, none of them were particularly wealthy. Strictly speaking, they were still somewhat poor. Otherwise, they wouldn't have to live in this ordinary apartment. Compared to other hackers who are quick to extort ordinary people and companies, they are more principled. After a few seconds of silence, the brown-haired man said, "There are 3 numbers in total. Jack and I will each have 1. The remaining 1 is for you, Sky. Give it to Lucy. I'm not interested in taking other jobs until I successfully hack into the SHIELD database. Sky, who had black hair and black eyes and was beautiful, said without even raising her head. End of this chapter. Chapter 39, Information about the Nine-Headed Snake. Chapter 39, Hydra Intelligence. Noon the next day. The Queen. Roy and Mary Jane chatted while eating the lunch in front of them. After receiving their diplomas, they officially graduated. Because they did not apply to college, their student life came to an end yesterday. Mary Jane didn't ask Roy what he did last night or why he came back covered in blood. She just chatted and laughed with Roy. She is not as smart as Gwen, but she has an advantage that Gwen doesn't have, which is that she is relatively more understanding. She cared more about Roy's feelings than satisfying her own curiosity. In addition, after reading the headlines on major social networking sites and news websites this morning, she had a guess in her mind. After lunch, Roy came to the living room, took out a new mobile phone from the system space, and searched major news websites in New York. As he expected, the headlines on major news websites were all reports of the murders of Mr. Negative and Hammerhead Joseph and others. The death of a gang leader is not big news in New York. After all, there are hundreds of gangs of all sizes in New York. But the death of 4 gang leaders in one night, all of whom were leaders of large gangs, is not just small news. Although there are many gangs in New York, most of them are small gangs with only 20 to 30 people. Only a very small number of gangs can grow big and strong in New York and develop into large gangs like the Magic Gang, the Demons Gang, and the Vipers Gang. The beginning of an all-out gang war? All the gang leaders were killed. The true identity of the philanthropist Martin Lee. The real boss of the Devil Gang. Is it a superhero? Or a serial killer? Gang leaders are being killed one after another. After taking a quick look at the reports, Roy browsed the comments below the reports with interest. The comments are much better than the report itself. It's not just news reports, online novels are actually similar. Many online novels are not as good as the readers' comments. As far as Roy knows, some online authors use readers' comments to crowdfund their books. Under these news reports, there were only dozens of comments discussing the murder of Mr. Negative and others, while there were thousands of comments discussing the murderer. Obviously, compared to the murder of Mr. Negative and his 4 companions, ordinary people are more curious about who the murderer is. While discussing who the murderer was, ordinary people, filled with curiosity, did not forget to complain about the incompetence of the New York police. When Spider-Man and Spider-Woman began to appear on the headlines of New York news every now and then, complaining about the incompetence of the New York police became a regular feature of the general public. Although Roy went to trouble Mr. Negative and others last night in order to gather information about Hydra, ordinary people did not know the inside story and naturally thought that he was there to fight crime. Therefore, many people regard him as the third superhero after Spider-Man and Spider-Woman. Not only that, they also gave him many titles. For example, the Masked Man, the Steel Claw Man, the Hunter, the Judge, the Night Hunter, the Dark Knight, etc. Although these titles are not particularly good, they are much better than the previous Steel Claw Masked Man. If nothing else, these titles at least sound more just. The man with the Steel Claw mask gives people the feeling of a perverted killer. After reading more than 10 pages of comments, Roy threw the phone back into the system space and walked towards the kitchen. I have to go out for something and will be back in the evening. Roy came into the kitchen and said to Mary Jane, who was washing dishes. Mary Jane turned to look at him, but without asking what he was going to do, she nodded. Just as Roy was about to go to the garage and drive out, the doorbell suddenly rang. Opening the door, Gwen appeared in Roy's sight. Today, Gwen wore a dark blue coat and a white shirt on the upper body, and a dark blue plaid skirt and brown high-heeled boots on the lower body. Although it is a very casual and everyday wear, as the saying goes, a good-looking person will look just as good in a sack. Especially the absolute territory created by the short skirt and high-heeled boots is extremely eye-catching. After taking a look at Gwen, Roy said to her, "Why are you here?" "There's something I want to talk to you about." Gwen replied quickly. "Come in and talk," Roy said. "It is good." Gwen nodded and went to the living room. When she heard the sound of dishes colliding and water coming from the kitchen, she knew that the person washing dishes in the kitchen was Mary Jane. Mary Jane found out not long after she and Roy started living together. Not only did she know that Mary Jane and Roy were living together, but she also knew that Roy often went to nightclubs to hunt for beauties. However, she did not think this was a big problem, nor was she angry or dissatisfied about it. First of all, she and Roy are not a couple now, but just close friends of the opposite sex. Secondly, there is the influence of American culture. Compared with the flower growers on the other side of the ocean, America is much more open in this regard. "I want to talk to you about what happened last night." Gwen turned around and said to Roy. "Okay, let's go to the study and talk." After saying that, Roy walked towards the study. Gwen followed him without any hesitation. When Gwen came to the chair in front of the desk and sat down, Roy closed the door and said to her, "Did Peter ask you to come?" "No, he just told me that he met you in Chinatown last night." Gwen replied quickly. "You also want to persuade me to stop?" Roy came and sat down opposite Gwen and spoke slowly. "No, I'm not here to tell you to stop. This morning, a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent named Natasha Romanoff found me and told me something about you." When Gwen said the name of Black Widow, Roy immediately frowned and interrupted Gwen. "She wants you to convince me to cooperate with S.H.I.E.L.D. "No, she knows you don't like S.H.I.E.L.D., so she asked me to give you this USB drive." After saying that, Gwen took out a black USB drive from her bag and handed it to Roy. After taking a look at the USB flash drive Gwen handed over, Roy turned on the computer next to him, inserted the USB flash drive into the host computer, and opened the USB flash drive. "This is..." After seeing the file name noted in the USB drive, he showed a surprised expression. The content in the USB drive is nothing but the Hydra intelligence collected by S.H.I.E.L.D. "What else did she tell you?" Roy said to Gwen without opening the documents. "Nothing else. She just asked me to give you this USB drive." Gwen replied quickly. Although he didn't like S.H.I.E.L.D. at all, Roy had to admit that S.H.I.E.L.D.'s approach was very smart. S.H.I.E.L.D. knew that the information about Hydra was what he needed most right now, so they immediately arranged for Gwen, who had a close relationship with him, to deliver the USB flash drive, proving their sincerity with practical actions. As for why it was not sent by Black Widow, Hawkeye, Agent Hill, and others, the reason is very simple. Because there is a high probability that they will be driven away by him directly. After thinking for a while, he said to Gwen, "Did she leave you her cell phone number?" "Have." Gwen immediately took out her cell phone from her bag, found Black Widow's number, and handed the phone to Roy. After taking the phone, Roy directly dialed Black Widow's number. Soon, the call was connected. Without waiting for Black Widow to speak, he spoke first. "I'm warning you one last time, don't come after me. I don't need your help, not before and not in the future." After hearing his words, Black Widow quickly replied, "We just want to help. Hydra is our common enemy. You know that the enemy of my enemy is my friend." On the surface, there's nothing wrong with what Black Widow said. But things are not that simple. S.H.I.E.L.D. would take the initiative to send him intelligence about Hydra. Its main purpose was not to help him get revenge, but to use him to fight Hydra. In addition, once he used S.H.I.E.L.D.'s information, it would be equivalent to him owing S.H.I.E.L.D. a favor. He doesn't like owing favors to others, especially those from S.H.I.E.L.D. "Whether you want to help me or use me, you know it very well." After saying that, Roy hung up the phone, pulled out the USB drive, and returned the phone and USB drive to Gwen. "I'll help you fight Hydra," Gwen said to Roy. "No, I can do it alone. You're the superhero Spider-Woman, killing people isn't for you. Roy looked at Gwen seriously, and calmly used the King of Cards superpower psychedelic power. Okay. Under the influence of the psychedelic power, Gwen gave up the idea of helping. After sending Gwen away, Roy came to the kitchen again and said to Mary Jane, "Are you done washing? There's still a little left, I'll finish it soon." Mary Jane replied quickly. "Come to the study after you wash up. I have something to tell you." Roy continued. "It is good." Mary Jane nodded. "Surrender, Azu, there are only Jackie Chans outside." Tang Xiaokai never expected that he would face such a famous scene just after traveling through time. It's not all Jackie Chan who surrounded him, because there were also Chow Yun Fat, Andy Lau, and Tony Leung Chu Wei. End of this chapter. Chapter 40 Kingpin. Chapter 40 Kingpin. Study. Mary Jane sat opposite Roy and looked at him calmly. When she came to the study, Roy briefly told her that he was a superhuman and that he had gone to Hell's Kitchen to kill someone last night. Unlike what he guessed, Mary Jane did not show any surprise, as if she had known about it all along. "When did you guess that?" Roy asked Mary Jane after noticing the calm look on her face. "This morning," Mary Jane replied. "Is it because of today's news?" Roy continued to ask. "Yeah, in addition to today's news, there's also news about Coney Island. That time in Coney Island, you went to the amusement park and when you came back you changed your clothes," Mary Jane said slowly. Roy wasn't particularly surprised that Mary Jane had guessed that she was a superhuman this morning. Apart from anything else, Mary Jane saw him coming back covered in blood in the early morning. "I originally didn't intend to tell you these things, but considering that you might face some unnecessary dangers in the future, I decided to tell you these. Since you now know that I am a superhuman, I will also tell you what I am going to do next." Roy looked at Mary Jane calmly and briefly told her that his original parents were killed by Hydra and his plan to ask Hydra to avenge his original parents. In addition, he also talked about Hydra's possible counterattack. For example, Mary Jane might be kidnapped and assassinated by Hydra, or someone she cares about might be harmed by Hydra, etc. After listening to his story, Mary Jane fell silent. After more than 10 seconds, she finally said, "Are you hinting that I should leave you?" "No, I just hope you can think it over carefully. Although I have several superpowers, I am only one person after all. I cannot protect you 24 hours a day. Also, from the fact that I have never publicly admitted that you are my girlfriend and that I go to nightclubs to pick up girls from time to time, you should know that I am not a loyal and good man. I know that you first came to me with the intention of relying on me to escape from your original family. You have graduated now and have dreams of becoming a theater actor. If you choose to leave, I will give you enough money to live alone for several years. Whether you choose to leave or stay, I will respect your decision." Roy looked at Mary Jane and said seriously. Although Hydra does not have any high-level combat power, it is more than enough to deal with Mary Jane, an ordinary person. As soon as he finished speaking, Mary Jane said with great determination, "I believe you. If I'm really in danger, I believe you will come to save me. Even if I die, you will definitely help me avenge." It's not surprising that Mary Jane would choose to stay. Although staying may lead to danger, it also provides a chance for a better future. Besides this, there is another reason why she chose to stay. That is, after knowing that Roy was a superhuman, she liked Roy more. Women are all strong-willed. And superhumans represent power to some extent. "Are you sure you've thought this through?" Roy asked Mary Jane. "Think it over carefully," Mary Jane replied quickly. "Now that you have thought it through, stay." After saying that, Roy took out a bank card from the system space and handed it to Mary Jane. Mary Jane looked at him in confusion, unable to react for a moment. "I have already chosen to stay, why are you giving me money?" Before she could say anything, Roy said, "Don't think too much. This is money for you to leave, but it's money for you to spend. There's not much money in there, only a little over 100,000 US dollars. Take it and use it first. If it's not enough, you can tell me again." After hearing what Roy said, Mary Jane said slowly, "You don't have to give me so much, I can do it myself. Take it and use it. I'm richer than you think. I'm out, call me if you need anything." After saying that, Roy got up, left the study, and drove towards Manhattan. Although he had paid Rising Tide to help investigate Hydra, he would not place all his hopes on Rising Tide. Be prepared for everything. After driving for more than half an hour in the congested New York City, he finally arrived at his destination. Fisk Tower. To ordinary people, the Fisk building is just an ordinary commercial building. Such commercial buildings can be found everywhere in Manhattan. But for those who know the inside story, Fisk Tower is not simple at all. Because this is the headquarters of the American underworld king, Kingpin. Roy's second preparation was to dig out information about Hydra from Kingpin. After parking his car on the street next to the Fisk building, he walked straight towards the Fisk building. He did not choose to shoot Spider Silk up, nor did he choose to fly up, but decided to walk in openly. Soon, he arrived at the lobby on the first floor of the Fisk building and said to the receptionist in professional attire, "Hello, my name is Roy Chen, and I have an appointment to meet Mr. Fisk this afternoon." The receptionist glanced at the reservation list, frowned and said, "I'm sorry, your name is not on the visitor list. Maybe the visitor list hasn't been updated. You can call Mr. Fisk's secretary and ask her to check with Mr. Fisk." Roy said calmly. If he guessed correctly, Kingpin should have known that he was the one who went on a killing spree in Hell's Kitchen last night. As the underworld king of New York, Kingpin has an extremely large intelligence network. In addition, Hydra may have already contacted Kingpin and asked him to help deal with him. Not long after, the receptionist put down the phone and said to Roy, "Mr. Fisk is waiting for you in the office. Please follow me." "Okay, please." Roy nodded. With the receptionist leading the way, he successfully took the elevator to the top floor of the building. After taking him to the top floor, the receptionist turned and left, and Jin Bing's blonde secretary took him to the office. Soon, he came to Kingpin's office and met the famous Kingpin Wilson Grant Fisk. Just as he remembered, Kingpin was a 2-meter tall, muscular bald man. Kingpin, wearing a black custom-made suit, sat in the boss chair behind the desk like a giant bear from Siberia, looking seriously at Roy, who was brought into the office by the blonde secretary. Although Kingpin's eyes were a little sharp, Roy didn't take it to heart at all. He walked calmly and sat down in front of Kingpin. When Jin Bing's blonde secretary left the office and gently closed the door, he didn't waste time and said directly, "You let me come up, which means you already know who I am. In that case, let's get straight to the point. Until I completely eradicate Hydra, continue to provide me with information about Hydra. I agree, you can continue to live. Refuse and you will die now. I'll give you a minute to think about it." End of this chapter. Like and subscribe.